Chapter 1538. The rest of the journey was peaceful. Even though the Chow family was investigating, Luli was fast. Luli had changed his appearance. Not everyone could tell that he was wearing the human skin mask. Only supreme warriors in the divinity could do so. Qi Shi'er changed her appearance as well. They had left the northern divinity. Many scouts of the Chow family had not reached this place yet. After more than 10 days, Lu Li and Qi Shi'er finally arrived at a small town at the edge of the Snowhawk Mountain. Lu Li did not go up the mountain rashly. He believed that there must be a branch of the Hall of Bloodblade in this town. He decided to contact the branch first and see if the Hall of Bloodblade would accept the deal. Qi Shi'er had been unwilling to go into the Wicked Bead. Lu Li did not force her. He would put her in when there was a problem. Lu Li was confident of his abilities. Unless there were supreme warriors in the divinity or 2 or 3 of them at the same time, he could rely on the mountain to deal with them. In the worst-case scenario, he could fly away. Lu Li had a meal with Qi Shi'er in the town. Then, he began to use psychic power to check the town. He didn't rashly investigate anyone or directly enter some courtyards. That would anger others. He just checked the streets and alleys, paying attention to some mysterious places. In just an hour, Lu Li retracted his psychic power and put on a smile. He had found a branch of the Hall of Bloodblade. The branch was not hidden at all. It was half public. It was in an alley to the north. Almost nobody would pass by this alley. It was spooky. In the middle of the alley was a mansion. There were no guards at the gate, but there was a blood-red blade carved on the gate, but this was just a branch. So what if it was discovered? If it was not obvious, how could others contact the Hall of Bloodblade? How could they do business with the Hall of Bloodblade? After the meal, Lu Li walked to the alley with Qi Shi'er. As soon as they stepped into the alley, Lu Li felt some psychic power coming over. It was like a chilly breeze. In addition, the alley was spooky. Qi Shi'er shivered and took Lu Li's hands. "Don't be afraid." Lu Li smiled lightly and walked towards the gate of the Hall of Bloodblade with Qi Shi'er in his hand. The door was opened, and inside was a cold and gloomy hall. There were no decorations in the hall, and most people would feel an inexplicable sense of fear after just a few glances. "Go!" Lu Li strode in. Qi Shi'er's face was pale, but holding Lu Li's hand, she was emboldened. She plucked up her courage and followed him in. There was nothing in the hall, only a gloomy corridor. The light in the corridor was dim, and it was very long. An ordinary person would not have the courage to continue walking. "What does the Bloodshed Hall do?" Standing in the hall, Lu Li said coldly with no expression, "We have guests here. Don't you know how to come out and greet us? Or, are you not doing business anymore?" An eerie laugh came from nowhere, scaring Qi Shi'er so much that her body trembled, and she quickly burrowed into Lu Li's arms. The man laughed a few times and said, "Esteemed guest, if you want to do business, please state your name. Or barge in yourself. Our Blood Edge Hall does not do business with ordinary people." "Oh, is that so?" A glint of coldness rose in Lu Li's eyes. He was angry that Qi Shi'er was frightened. The demon slayer suddenly appeared in his hand, and he hacked at the wall in front of him. A hole appeared in the wall. Lu Li and Qi Shi'er didn't go through the corridor. Instead, they sneaked into the yard through the hole in the wall. Whoosh, 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 there were many pavilions in the yard. Dozens of warriors swarmed out. They were clearly assassins. They were covered in black armors, and only their eyes could be seen. Even though they swarmed out, they didn't make any sound. They liked to stick to walls and walk in the shadows of trees. They seemed to be assassins who spent most of their time in the dark. Lu Li stood in the yard with Qi Shi'er emotionless. He used psychic power to check the surroundings. The most powerful one here was a super mighty warrior from the divinity. Lu Li stared at him and said with a smile, "You Blood Edge Hall does not do business with ordinary people. I think it is unusual for me to come in like this. Don't be nervous. I'm not trying to provoke you. Your yard is broken. I will repair it for you with divine source." "Sir." The most powerful old man walked over in a creepy manner. He was covered in a black robe. He looked at Lu Li with his cloudy eyes and said, "What you have broken is not our walls, but the face of the Hall of Bloodblade. Please give us an explanation." "Oh." Lu Li smiled. All of a sudden, He waved his sleeve. An invisible force came down and trapped everyone in the yard. At the same time, the three mountains whooshed out from Lu Li's wicked bead. Looking at the old warrior coldly, Lu Li said, "Is this enough? If you Blood Edge don't want to do business, then don't." Buzzing, Lu Li's spatial energy disappeared. Everyone could move again. All the assassins were filled with killing intent. Lu Li was suppressing them in a branch of Blood Edge. To them, this was a great humiliation. Enough! That old warrior waved his hand and said to the assassins, "Leave. This is an honored guest. We are sorry." This old warrior must be the leader of the branch. As soon as he spoke, all the assassins left and disappeared into the attics. None of them were left. That old warrior took off his cloak, bowed, and said, "I am blind and have neglected you. Please forgive me. Please come with me. We, the Blood Edge, are here to do business." The old warrior's attitude changed from arrogance to humility. Lu Li was surprised, and so was Qi Shi. But since the old warrior's attitude had changed, Lu Li would not lose his temper since he had a favor to ask from the Blood Edge. Lu Li put up his guard. He made eye contact with Qi Shi and then put her into the wicked bead. Assassins were many times more powerful than average warriors. This old warrior was a super mighty warrior in the divinity. He must be a powerful assassin. Lu Li was afraid that Qi Shi would be in danger if he suddenly made a move. The old warrior said nothing when Lu Li put away Qi Shi. He walked toward a small castle with a smile. Lu Li followed him in, keeping his guard up. The three mountains were flying behind him. The old warrior went in and sat down. Two maids came in to serve tea. The old warrior said, "You don't have to suspect that we have ulterior motives. We, the Blood Edge, do not want to bring destruction upon ourselves. We will not make you our enemy." Oh, Lu Li was surprised. He could tell something from the old warrior's words. A glint of coldness rose in Lu Li's eyes as he asked, "You know who I am?" "Yes." The old warrior bowed and said, "Young Master Lu, you are famous in the divinity and at the land of Yuyan. We, the Blood Edge, have a branch at the land of Yuyan. We know something about the skill that made young Master Lu famous. It is because we know who you are that we do not dare to disrespect you. The Blood Edge is only doing business. We do not want to be like the craftsman's sect and the palace of dominating heaven. We hope that we can be friends with young Master Lu. Our clan master once said, 'One day, there will be a chance to change the world.' Young Master Lu, you are one of them." "What?" The glint of coldness grew in Lu Li's eyes upon hearing the old warrior's words. The consequences of exposing his identity would be dire. What if the Blood Edge colluded with the four legendary forces? He wouldn't even know how he died. Chapter 1539. The Hall of Bloodblade had a branch at the land of Yuyan, so they knew Lu Li's situation like the back of their hand. It was said that the Hall of Bloodblade was good at gathering intelligence. Lu Li's whereabouts from now on would be under their control. Once the Hall of Bloodblade colluded with the four super forces, Lu Li would not be safe anywhere. Supreme warriors from the divinity could find him at any time. That was why Lu Li was so nervous. He even had the urge to raze the entire branch to the ground and to kill every last member of the Hall of Bloodblade at the Snow Eagle Mountain. As for what the old man said later, Lu Li ignored it. Lu Li, who had the chance to change the world. Lu Li wouldn't believe it himself. He didn't even know when he was going to die. He wasn't so confident that he could change the world. At least, it would be wishful thinking for him to say that now. Sensing Lu Li's killing intent, the old man of the Hall of Bloodblade forced a smile and said, "Young Master Lu, don't get me wrong. You know our Hall Master, and he is your friend." "Ah." Lu Li was taken aback. He asked in surprise, "Who is my friend?" "Ha ha," the old man nodded. The ring on his hand glowed as he took out a golden token, handed it over, and said, "Young Master Lu, you know this token, don't you?" Lu Li took it over and looked at it. Once again, he was surprised. He had this kind of token as well. There was a dragon on it. It was the token of King Pan. "Your Hall Master is Pan Yuqin?" Lu Li looked up and asked. "Yes." The old man nodded and said, "Actually, the Hall of Bloodblade was established by the previous King Pan. The current King Pan let Lady Qin manage the Hall of Bloodblade. Miss Qin even sent a message to us earlier, asking us to help young master as much as we can when necessary. Luli checked the token carefully and gave it back to the old man. He didn't trust the old man completely. He thought about it and asked, "What is your identity in the Hall of Bloodblade? Why do you have the token of King Pan?" Theoretically speaking, the token was precious and it was evidence of collusion. Normally, the nominal Hall Master of the Hall of Bloodblade should be in charge of it. The old man cupped his fists and said, "I am Jian Shalai, the 11th Patriarch of the Hall of Bloodblade. However, the Hall Master sent me to make contact with young Master, and only then did he bestow me with the token. I've been investigating young Master's whereabouts during this period of time, but I didn't expect young Master to take the initiative to look for me." The old man's words were reasonable, but Luli still did not believe him. After all, his enemies in the immortal realm were too strong. If this person had purposely deceived him and stalled him here, then secretly contacted the craftsman's sect, he would still die without knowing why. Therefore, Luli cupped his fists and said, "Do you have any proof?" After all, I've sent out quite a few Pan King medallions. Please forgive me for being cautious. Elder Shi, you should know that my enemies in the God realm are too strong. Understand. Jian Shilai nodded. After a moment of silence, he lifted his head and said, "Young Master Lu, please wait a moment. I'll let Miss Qin talk to you in person." Jian Shilai took out a jade amulet. It was a peculiar jade amulet with some peculiar lines on it, which looked like a complicated formation. The jade amulet glowed as Jian Shilai infused his divine power into it. Luli frowned. He did not understand this jade amulet. Why would Jian Shilai ask Pan Yuqin to talk to him in person? What if Pan Yuqin didn't come after a while and the powerful warriors of the craftsman's sect arrived by the teleportation formation of the space-time office? Of course, Luli had the courage to do so. He could not leave like this. He began to be on the alert, sensing the fluctuations in the space around him. He had learned the fundamental principle of space, which made him sensitive to spatial fluctuations. He believed that if someone was trying to approach, he would sense it. Time moved on. After the time for 2 incense sticks to burn, that jade amulet suddenly glowed. Then, spiritual energy in heaven and earth gathered in the hall from all sides, forming a face in the hall. Luli put on a bitter smile when he saw the face. He relaxed completely. He stood up and said, "Miss Qin, you really have a lot of connections." That face was indeed Pan Yuqin's. Her voice came out, but it sounded low, as if it came from a distant place. She said, "Young Master Lu, I told you that we have a common enemy, and we will work together in the future. The Pan Palace has been working hard for this. The Hall of Bloodblade may not be completely trustworthy, but Patriarch Shi Lai has been in the Pan Palace for a long time. You can put your mind at ease. Also, please keep this a secret. Otherwise, none of them will survive. I know the severity of this." Luli nodded. He thought about it and said, "Miss Qin, I won't say thank you. Next time we meet, let's drink and chat merrily." "Okay, I will look forward to your return, young Master Lu." Pan Yuqin's face faded away. In the end, she said, "The divinity is full of danger. Young Master Lu, focus on cultivation. Take care." Pan Yuqin's shadow disappeared. Luli put his mind at ease. He cupped his fists and said, "I am sorry, Patriarch Shi Lai. I have doubted you. I apologize. Young Master Lu, you are too kind." Jian Shilai bowed back and said, "Young Master Lu, you are a friend of Our Lady. You are our honored guest. We will do our best to help you." "All right, I won't stand on ceremony either." Luli nodded. He took out a portrait and handed it to Jian Shilai, saying, "This is the portrait of my sister. Her name is Lu Ling. I want you to help me find her." "Lu Ling?" Jian Shilai was taken aback a bit. He asked while raising his sparse eyebrows. "The number 1 on the genius list of the divinity is also called Lu Ling. Is it? I'm not sure." Luli added, "I also have some suspicions that this Lu Ling might be my sister, but I never had the chance to meet her. Therefore, I hope that Patriarch West can help me find out which force Lu Ling, the #1 on the genius list, is from. Where was he? If you have a chance to see her, help me make sure if she is the same as the one in the portrait. With that said, Lu Li's ring glowed as he took out an interspatial ring. Handing it over, Lu Li said, "There are 1 billion divine sources in here. If you need more, just let me know. I have some." "No need," Jian Shilai said with a smile while shaking his head. "Young Master Lu is a friend of our young mistress, so we can't take your divine source. It's just gathering information. Our Bloodblade Hall still has some methods." "No." Lu Li pushed the ring over again and said firmly, "Take the divine source. We need to spend money to do our work. Also, please find out all costs. If possible, you can send someone to the Cabinet of Intelligence to ask about her. All in all, I need all the information about Lu Ling on the genius list." "All right." Jian Shilai couldn't say more since Lu Li was so determined. He took the ring and said, "Young Master Lu, how about staying at the Snow Eagle Mountain? We will try our best to gather information." "Okay, thank you." Lu Li didn't know where to go right now. He nodded in agreement. The Bloodblade Hall was under the command of Pan Yuqin, and Jian Shilai was from the Pan family. It would be relatively safe for him to stay here. More importantly, Lu Li could be informed as soon as there was any information. "Sis, is that Lu Ling you?" Chapter 1540. The Snow Eagle Mountain was located in the middle of the 3 prefectures. It covered a large area, divided into 9 camps and 18 strongholds. The restrictions inside were very strong, and it was a chain formation. If they wanted to enter the 9 barracks inside, they would have to destroy the 18 stockade villages outside. This was the headquarters of the Hall of Bloodblade, where there were many powerful warriors and assassins. Unless the 4 supreme forces sent powerful warriors to attack, even a force like the Chow family couldn't destroy the Hall of Bloodblade. Lu Li didn't go to the 9 camps in the innermost area. Instead, he lived in a stronghold at the border, a place called the East Wind Stronghold. According to Jian Shilai, the Hall of Bloodblade didn't belong entirely to the Pan family. Most of them were from the divinity. It was just that the Pan family controlled the Hall of Bloodblade in secret. Therefore, Jian Shilai brought Lu Li and Qi Shi'er to a stronghold where everyone here was his people. He didn't have to worry about being exposed. As a matter of fact, the 4 supreme forces knew that the forces of the land of Yuyan had secretly made arrangements in the divinity. The 4 supreme forces also supported some forces in the land of Yuyan in secret to act as their eyes. They could give a fatal blow when necessary. Some senior members of the Hall of Bloodblade knew that the mysterious chief master came from the land of Yuyan, but they didn't care. Assassins were something that couldn't be exposed to the public. They would work for whoever could give them divine sources. What did assassins do all day? Assassinating the higher-ups of the divinity and finding out the secrets of the divinity? They didn't have a good relationship with the major forces in the divinity. The East Wind Stronghold was not big. It was located on a small mountain with many small castles and caves. They didn't seem to have a regular pattern, but the arrangement was quite interesting. Lu Li was a master of formations. He found that the castles and caves were carefully arranged after a few glances. Those were the formation eyes. When necessary, the castles and caves could be destroyed. By then, a powerful formation of destruction would appear. The East Wind Stronghold was beautiful, with verdant hills and clear waters. There was a kind of unknown flower blooming all over the mountain. Qi Shi'er liked it very much. Lu Li nodded to himself after a while. Even the flowers were arranged with an ulterior motive. The scent of the flowers was strong. Normally, nothing would happen just by smelling it. However, it could be mixed with other scents to produce poison. There was a small river at the foot of the mountain that circled around the mountain. Lu Li also saw something wrong with the river. It wasn't that there was a restrictive spell in the river, but that there were puppets in the river. Some fish looked no different from ordinary fish, but they were actually puppets, fake fish. These fish kept swimming in the river. If someone were to swim underwater, they would immediately be discovered by these fish and attract the attention of the people from the Bloodshed Hall. This Snow Eagle Mountain range is filled with traps and traps. Luli exclaimed to himself that the headquarters of an assassin organization was indeed unusual. There were mysteries everywhere. Of course, if the enemy were to sneak into the headquarters of the assassins, there would be no need for this assassin organization to exist. Squeak, squeak, Luli let Little White out as well, and it wandered around the village with Chi Shi'er. All the restrictions in the village were closed to make it easier for Chi Shi'er and Little White to move around. Luli sat on the cliff at the peak and cultivated. He didn't have to do anything except wait for the information from Jian Shilai. Dozens of people usually live in the East Wind Village, but they rarely went out. They were either out on missions or cultivating in the caves in the castle. There was a formation of spirit gathering in the East Wind Village, but it was not a very advanced one. Luli asked Blood Fairy to modify the formation of spirit gathering so that the spiritual chi in the village was 10 times richer. However, an assassin was alerted after a while. Jian Shilai soon came to Lu Li's side. He bowed and said, "Thank you, young Master Lu, for your help. You have been sitting here without doing anything, but you have secretly modified the formation of spirit gathering. You have done a marvelous job. It's not a big deal." Lu Li waved his hand and said, "I want to cultivate here as well. If you want the spiritual chi to be thicker, you can buy some advanced stones of spirit gathering and materials. I will do the work myself. I can make the spiritual chi in the village 100 times richer." 100 times? Jian Shilai gasped. The spiritual chi in heaven and earth was already very dense. If it were 100 times richer, this place would become a paradise. Jian Shilai asked Lu Li to list some formation stones and materials and left with a list. How could Jian Shilai miss such a good chance? With such a powerful formation of spirit gathering, those cultivating here would be able to cultivate faster. Over a long period of time, his subordinates would be able to grow stronger. Jian Shilai left. Lu Li closed his eyes to cultivate. He was still studying the sword mark, move he learned in the Hall of Ghost, and had successfully learned another fundamental principle. This sword mark move should be the famous skill of the Master of Ghost, which was formed by combining 4 fundamental principles. If he could learn all of them, Lu Li believed that his abilities would be improved by leaps and bounds. It took Jian Shilai only 5 days to get the materials ready. Lu Li came out from cultivation and helped him set up the formation. For him, it was easy to set up the formation of spirit gathering. As a matter of fact, the reason why this formation could be so powerful was that Blood Fairy had integrated several formations of spirit gathering together. Lu Li set up 12 formations in the mountain. Then Blood Fairy sneaked into the underground and began to modify the inhibition formations. 2 hours later, Blood Fairy retracted her tentacles and said to Lu Li, "Master, it is done." Okay. Lu Li poured out divine energy to activate the spirit gathering formation. Strands of white mist spread out. The entire East Wind Village was filled with spiritual chi. Even Blood Fairy, who was cultivating on the side, was alarmed. Whoosh, 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 many assassins in the castles were alarmed. They came out and went back in delight after Jian Shilai explained the situation. Some assassins bowed to Lu Li from a distance. Though they did not say any words of gratitude, their gratitude was evident. "Okay, I'm going to cultivate. Report to me as soon as you find anything." Lu Li waved his hand and began to cultivate next to Chi Shi'er. He continued to study the sword mark move. Chi Shi'er said nothing and continued to cultivate. Lying on the ground, Little White opened its eyes and fell asleep after a few looks. Little White had eaten many cloud crystals recently and needed to digest the energy. Why hasn't Little White transformed yet? Lu Li was surprised. Theoretically speaking, Little White could be regarded as a member of the demon race after it reached the immortal realm and could transform. However, Little White's abilities had been improving, but there was no sign of it, which surprised Lu Li. Never mind. Lu Li cleared his mind and entered the transcendent state. He began to concentrate on learning. At the same time, he cultivated divine energy and nurtured his soul at the same time. He had many top-level elixirs in his interspatial ring that could nourish the soul enough for him to use for over 100 years. Time flew by, and 3 months passed in the blink of an eye. Jian Shilai finally came back after 3 months. Standing in front of Lu Li, he cupped his fists and said, "Young Master Lu, we have some information about Lu Ling." What? Chapter 1541. Lu Li didn't say anything after he opened his eyes. He waved his hand and walked to a pavilion nearby with Jian Lai. After they sat down, he asked, "What is it? Please tell me, Patriarch Jian Shi." "We have some information about Lu Ling," Jian Lai explained. "Over the past few months, we have been investigating Lu Ling on the list. Unfortunately, this person is too mysterious. We have no other information apart from the public information. We can't get any information from the civilians. We have to go to some major families to get some information. However, the regular families know little about this Lu Li. We don't dare to go to the intelligence pavilion rashly because we might be exposed." Jian Shi's speech was full of nonsense, talking about how hard they had worked and how hard they had worked. If it were someone else, Lu Li would have told him to shut up. But now, he had to listen patiently. In the end, Jian Shi finally came to the point. "In the end, we found a major family that used to have contact with Lu Ling's family." He said, "Lu Ling's family belongs to the kind of super family that is hidden from the world. The outside world doesn't even know about it. Only dozens of people in the entire divinity know something about it. Her family rarely comes out, and only the young ones come out. They never get involved in any disputes. Only 1 or 2 young people come out every time. They go to various dangerous places to train and grow. Once they reach a certain stage, they will disappear mysteriously and never show up in the divinity again." Lu Li couldn't stand it anymore. He asked, "Can you be more specific?" Jian Lai sensed Lu Li's impatience and told him everything. "According to what we know, Lu Ling's family is probably at the Mountain of Dragons in the Silver Dragon Office in the east of the divinity. Many young people of her family came from the Silver Dragon Office in history." Silver Dragon Office, Mountain of Dragons? Lu Li's heart skipped a beat. There was a silver dragon mark in his soul, which matched the Mountain of Dragons in the Silver Dragon Office. Lu Li's eyes flickered, and he breathed faster. He took out a map and browsed through it. Soon, he found the Silver Dragon Office. It was at the east of the divinity, the easternmost part, far away from here. It would take him more than a month to go there by teleportation formation, even if he had a travel day and night. It would take him a few days to get there by teleportation formation. But Lu Li didn't dare to go to the space-time office. "Any more information?" Lu Li lifted his head to look at Jian Shilai. Jian Shilai said after some thought, "This young lady Lu Ling has been wearing an advanced veil since she came out, and she has never shown her true face. 3 years ago, she had appeared in a historical site in the center of the God realm and had even crippled the son of a great clan. But that family dared not to say a word." According to the current information, Lu Ling should have gone back to the Mountain of Dragons. Of course, this information could not be 100% confirmed. It was just a deduction. If he wanted accurate information, he could only go to the secret pavilion. Also, I don't know if the Cabinet of Mystery will say anything. After all, there is nothing about Lu Ling published on the list of talents. It means that Lu Ling has asked the Cabinet of Mystery to keep it a secret. And Lu Ling nodded. She waved her hand and said, "Don't go to the Cabinet of Mystery to ask in case we alert the enemy and create unnecessary misunderstandings. I will go to the Mountain of Dragons. Silver Dragon Manor, Silver Dragon Mountain, Silver Dragon Mark." The animal tooth pendant was used by the Lu Ling family to protect Lu Ling. This gave Lu Li hope. He believed it was highly likely that Lu Ling on the list of talents was his sister. Anyhow, he must go to the Mountain of Dragons and find a way to meet that Lu Ling and see if she was his sister. "Let's go." Lu Li could not sit still any longer. He asked after some thoughts, "Is there anything unusual in the divinity? Does a craftsman's sect do anything?" "No." Jian Shilai shook his head and said, "Apart from the Chao family at the north mobilizing warriors to search, the other places are quiet. That disciple of the immediate Chao family was killed by young Master Lu, right?" "Yes." Lu Li admitted it directly. So what if the Chow family knew? He was not afraid. He stood up and walked to Chi, who was alarmed. Luli said, Chi, I am going to the palace of Silver Dragon. Do you want to stay here and cultivate or come with me? Of course, I will go with you. Without any hesitation, Chi stood up, grabbed Lu Li's arm, and said, Brother, you promised me that you will not leave me alone. You must take me with you wherever you go. Squeak, squeak, Little White woke up as well. Hearing Lu Li's words, Little White climbed onto Lu Li's shoulder as if it was afraid that Lu Li would leave it behind. Then let's go. Though Lu Li wanted Chi to stay, she would go to extremes easily. Back then, she went to the Valley of Ghosts by herself. If Lu Li left her behind and ran around in the divinity, the consequences would be unimaginable. Patriarch Jian Shilai, thank you for your hospitality during this time. Lu Li walked over to Jian Shilai with Chi. Jian Shilai did not ask him to stay. He handed over a token and said, This is the token of the Patriarch of the Hall of Bloodblade. We have branches in all prefectural cities. Young Master Lu, you can find it if you look carefully. As long as you show them the token, they will cooperate with you. Thank you. Lu Li accepted the token and said, Patriarch Jian Shilai, please send someone to escort us out. There are many inhibition formations and sentries here. Of course, Lu Li could go out, but it would be troublesome and he could attract unnecessary trouble. I will see you out in person. Jian Shilai led Lu Li and Chi out. It was easy with the Patriarch leading the way. In the time for 2 incense sticks to burn, Lu Li and Chi arrived at the foot of the mountain of Snow Eagle. Here are 2 new jade talismans of identity. At the foot of the mountain, Jian Shilai handed over 2 jade talismans and said, The jade talismans you bought from the Hall of Snow Clouds might be fine, but be careful. Lu Li took over the jade talisman and gave one to Chi. He nodded to Jian Shilai and left in strides with her. Lu Li began to teleport after they entered the small city. After hundreds of teleportations, he would find a place to rest. It had been a long time since he last saw Lu Ling. He was not in a hurry to rest for a few days. The divinity was dangerous. Lu Li must stay in his best state at all times and be ready for battle. This time, the craftsman sect might not have received the news. The journey was peaceful. Lu Li and Chi would stop and rest from time to time. Usually, they would rest for half a day after 4 to 5 days of teleportation. Every now and then, Lu Li would take Chi to the big cities to eat, drink, and have fun. Chi was overjoyed. After more than a month, Lu Li finally arrived at the prefecture city of Silver Dragon, the capital of the Silver Dragon office. He had learned that the Mountain of Dragons was 3 million miles to the east of the Silver Dragon City, and it was by the sea. Here, Lu Li was in no mood to rest. He took Chi out of the city and went to the Mountain of Dragons. It took them half a day to cover the 3 million miles. Lu Li saw a huge mountain piercing through the clouds. His eyes were filled with excitement. Clearly, the mountain was protected by powerful inhibition formations. The upper part of the mountain was shrouded in clouds and mist. Lu Li could not see anything on the mountain, but he could sense a hint of danger. Sister, are you up there? Chapter 1542. The path was nothing out of the ordinary with many twists and turns. On both sides were boulders. Nothing seemed out of place. Lu Li checked to make sure that nothing was wrong. He took Chi with him and walked forward. That being said, after the time for 1 incense stick to burn, Lu Li noticed that the path was twisting and turning. He was at the foot of the mountain again. When he was at the foot of the mountain, he was taken aback. He was a master in inhibition formations. Just now, he did not sense any fluctuation of inhibition formations, nor did he sense any formation of illusion. Unknowingly, he had fallen into the trap. Sure, you go in first. This mountain is strange. Lu Li did not dare to act rashly. He took out the wicked bead and put Chi in. Chi knew that if there were inhibition formations, she would be a burden to Lu Li. She did not resist. Blood Fairy, Lu Li said. At the same time, he let out the 3 mountains. Bloodvine reached out her tentacles from the wicked bead and poked them into the ground to check. Luli began to observe the path to see if he could find anything wrong. After a while, Luli did find something. The boulders on both sides of the path seemed to be in disorder, but they were arranged in a strange formation. In other words, there was no inhibition formation on the path itself. It was the boulders on both sides that were playing tricks. A moment later, Blood Fairy said, "Master, there is a strong formation of illusion and a forbidden formation of Elder God. It is more complicated than the forbidden formation of Elder God at the burial of ancient demons. It will take some time to crack it." Luli was worried. "How long will it take?" Blood Fairy answered, "About a month. It is complicated. I have to study it first before I can change the patterns and crack it." "Wait." Luli shook his head after some thoughts. He tidied up his clothes, released Dragon Roar, and shouted, "Is there anyone in the mountain? I beg to see you." Luli's Dragon Roar was loud enough to be heard in an area with a radius of 30 miles. Luli shouted, but there was no response from the mountain. Nobody came out. "Is there anyone in the mountain? I beg to see you. I have something important to discuss with you." After a while, Luli shouted again. Still, there was no response. There didn't seem to be anyone in the mountain. Or, there was a powerful inhibition formation that isolated Luli's voice. Those inside could not hear him. "Break the formation." Luli waved his hand. He sat down to check the surroundings. Blood Fairy reached out her tentacles to study the formation of illusion. Nothing happened for 2 days. Luli decided to leave it at that. He sat with his legs crossed and started cultivating. However, he did not dare to enter the state of ethereal realm and was constantly using the power of space to sense the situation around him. Time passed one day at a time. There was no movement at the foot of the mountain, and no one approached. 20 days later, Blood Fairy had begun to break the formation. The 20th day, the stones on both sides of the path began to move. The path changed. Luli opened his eyes and asked, "Has Blood Fairy cracked it?" "Yes." Blood Fairy nodded and sent a voice transmission. "However, it seems like there are more restrictions on the mountain path. They're even more complicated, and I can't understand them at all." "You don't understand?" Luli pulled a long face. He could not afford to waste too much time. He told Blood Fairy to put away her tentacles and walked up. Following the mountain path, it was very smooth this time. After walking for about 3,000 jong, the mountain path changed into a stone staircase. "What?" A glint of coldness rose in Luli's eyes. He could feel the fluctuation of inhibition formations on the staircase, strong ones. Luli did not dare to go up. He asked after some thoughts, "Blood Fairy, how is the repair going?" "Not completely." Blood Fairy understood what Luli meant. She replied, "But I can walk." Buzzing, Luli let out the immortal's body, who rushed up at once. At the 3rd step, the immortal's body trembled and fell down. "Master," Blood Fairy said, "there is a powerful gravity inhibition formation on the staircase. The gravity here is 1,000,000 times stronger than outside. The higher you go, the gravity will increase 1,000,000 times?" Luli's pupils contracted. The gravity at the 1st step was already 1,000,000 times. Wouldn't it be tens of millions or even billions of times higher? Could people go up the staircase? Not even supreme warriors in the divinity could go up there. "Let's see." Luli made up his mind and stepped on the staircase. As soon as he took the 1st step, he noticed a glare coming from the staircase. Following that, a surge of gravity pressed down on him. He felt like he was being crushed by a mountain. "Roar!" Luli bellowed like a beast. Then, he took a step up and climbed to the 2nd step. As soon as he stepped up, he felt an even stronger force. He could no longer stand and fell down. "SH*T!" Luli bellowed in rage. There were only 2 steps up, and he could not stand it anymore. The staircase was winding. Luli could see that there were at least hundreds of steps. Was this a place where warriors could go up? Even if Yu Qingtian was here, could he climb up dozens of steps? "Blood Fairy, take a look." Luli waved his hand. It was impossible for him to go up. He had to find a way to crack the formation. He began to observe patiently, trying to find a way to crack the formation. Half a day later, Blood Fairy said, "Master, This formation cannot be cracked. At least, not with my current abilities. Cannot be cracked? Luli cannot believe it. Blood Fairy was talented in cracking formations, and she was a master of formations herself. How could she say that this formation could not be cracked? Blood Fairy had studied many inhibition formations of Elder God. Blood Fairy explained, if the inhibition formations in the mountains are of the first level, then the one here is at least of the 5th level. It is 5 times more complicated than those in the mountains. Master, do you think I can crack it? Not even I can see the inhibition formations in the depths. Luli was stunned. What kind of place was this mountain of dragons? Why was there such a strong inhibition formation? Many inhibition formations of Elder God and the forbidden ground of ancient demons were built by a powerful Fey emperor in ancient times. Was the one who built the inhibition formations of dragons more powerful than that Fey emperor? Boom! A glint of determination rose in Luli's eyes. Since Blood Fairy could not crack the inhibition formations, he would crack them by force. He said to the artifact spirits of the 3 mountains, Ayo, control the 3 mountains and smash them. Crack all the inhibition formations on the staircase. Whoosh, the 3 divine mountains whistled as they flew into the distance. However, they didn't expand as they turned into 3 streams of flowing light and crashed into the stone stairs. Luli was on high alert. He even stepped back for thousands of feet, fearing that the inhibition formations would backfire on him. Luli used psychic power to check the staircase, waiting for the strong reaction after the collision. Bang, bang, bang. Luli heard 3 muffled sounds. What happened next shocked him. The staircase glowed. The 3 mountains were bounced back, but the staircase was not damaged. What? Luli was stunned. How strong must the impact of the 3 mountains be? Yet, the staircase was not damaged at all. For the first time, Luli felt there might be more secrets hidden in the world. He was not at a high enough level to know them. Chapter 1543. Mountains were nurtured by heaven and earth. They weighed so much that they could suppress supreme warriors in the divinity. A random bump could break the bones of Lord Asmodean Shi Ming, who specialized in body cultivation. The strength of mountains was horrifying. An average mountain would be smashed into pieces when it was hit by a mountain. Average inhibition formations would be destroyed in an instant. Luli could be considered a master in inhibition formations. As far as he could tell, even the strongest inhibition formations would be damaged when hit by 3 mountains. At the very least, there would be some strong reactions. However, apart from the glow, the stairs did not even tremble, not to mention being damaged. The strength of the inhibition formations on the stairs was beyond Luli's knowledge. That was why he felt the world was not as simple as it appeared to be. There must be many secrets. Years ago, he thought the 72 sects were the super forces in the divinity. Later on, he learned that the 72 sects were nothing in the divinity. During the competition of craftsmen, not even Lucifer and Holy Princess were allowed to sit in a private room on the 2nd floor. This was a proof of that. If the information was right, and the Mountain of Dragons was the territory of the Lu Ling family, then the Lu Ling family was more powerful than Luli could imagine. At the very least, the Lu Ling family was powerful in inhibition formations. That being said, Luli had used 3 mountains. If there were people on the mountain, they would have been alerted. Why didn't anyone come out? Was this not where the Lu Ling family was? Was it just a historical site? Was it a place where a powerful warrior lived in the ancient times? Keep going. Lu Ling made up her mind. She ordered Ao and the others to keep going. The 3 divine mountains whistled through the air and crashed violently into the stone steps again. Buzzing, the stairs glowed brightly. Still, they were not damaged. Instead, the 3 mountains were bounced off. Ao and the others did not stop. They smashed at the stairs for more than a dozen times, but the result was the same. Don't hit the stairs. Grow up and hit the mountain. Luli made up his mind. The stairs were protected by inhibition formations, but the entire mountain could not be protected by inhibition formations. If the entire mountain was destroyed, someone on the mountain would not be able to stand it anymore. Buzzing, the three mountains glowed and grew to a size of 30 miles. From three directions, they smashed at the mountain of dragons. Whoosh, Luli stepped back from the mountain. There must be many inhibition formations in the mountain. He would be in danger on the mountain if he were to be attacked by the inhibition formations. Chi-Chi. The three mountains were so fast that space was trembling. Luli kept his eyes wide open. He used psychic power to check, waiting for the collision. Whoosh, whoosh, right at this moment, something strange happened. The worldly spiritual energy from all directions madly gathered towards the top of the mountain. Next, three illusory golden hands appeared at the top of the mountain. Each of the three hands was over 1,000 zhang long, and each of them resembled a golden dragon as they shot towards the three divine mountains at lightning speed. Luli's eyes were wide open and his mouth was agape. Once again, he was dumbstruck. This was because the three giant hands had grabbed the divine mountains that were about to crash into the Silver Dragon Mountain. These three divine mountains that could suppress even the God World's paragons were like little birds in the hands of the three giant hands. They were so easily grabbed that they couldn't even move. Looking up at the three golden hands, Luli's astonishment could not be put into words. At this moment, he felt like he was witnessing an immortal when he was still immortal. This scene reminded him of the word miracle. Yu Qingtian, the God World's paragons, was the most powerful warrior in the divinity. However, he could not fight back under the pressure of the divine mountains. He could only crawl out bit by bit. In the end, he used a powerful skill and paid a heavy price to escape. The divine mountains were powerful. As far as Luli could tell, the divine mountains should be able to suppress most of the divinity's paragons. The divinity's paragons were the most powerful warriors in the divinity. However, the three golden hands had turned Luli's perception upside down. The three golden hands had grabbed the divine mountains. In other words, the three golden hands could crush an average divinity's paragons. Luli used to have some confidence. He thought his abilities were not bad in the divinity. At the very least, he could kill super mighty warriors and defeat average divinity's paragons. He could fly away at any time. However, in front of the three golden hands, Luli felt so puny and powerless. The three hands were so strong that he could not compete with them. Buzzing, the hands suddenly collapsed in midair. The divine mountains could move again. Luli could not control the divine mountains to attack the mountain of dragons anymore. He sent a message to Ao at once and told the divine mountains to fly back. The mountain was still quiet, so quiet that it was terrifying. After the mysterious, powerful warrior took action, he didn't do anything else. He didn't say anything. Luli thought about it for a while. Then, he bowed and shouted with dragon roar, "Lord, I don't mean to offend you. I just want to see Lady Lu." It was still silent. Luli thought that there would be no response. Then, he heard an old voice. This voice didn't reach Luli's ears. Instead, it appeared in his soul directly. It was like a clap of thunder that shocked Luli. The Mountain of Dragons is a forbidden area and does not accept anyone. Considering that you are young, I will forgive you this once. If you dare to attack again, I will kill you without mercy. The person who sent the voice was very firm, giving people a feeling that there was no room for doubt. Luli's eyes dimmed down. He knew that if he dared to use the divine mountains to attack again, the next time, the golden hands wouldn't just grab the divine mountains. Instead, they would slap him to death. Something isn't right. Luli carefully repeated the old man's words. Suddenly, he felt something unusual from the old man's words. Considering that you are young, when the headquarters of a major force was attacked, would they forgive him because he was young? For example, if someone from the massacre shrine pestered them endlessly, insisted on going up the mountain, and even attacked the restriction formation of the Kunlun Mountain, would the massacre shrine deal with him like this? Even if they didn't kill him, they would at least punish him, right? Otherwise, if this matter were spread out, everyone would come to the massacre shrine to create a ruckus for that mysterious, powerful warrior. Luli was just a puny insect. Just now, Lu Li roared a few times and attacked the stone stairs for more than a dozen times. In the end, he even used the divine mountains to attack the mountain. Even if an expert had a good temper, he would still be furious. If Lu Li wasn't killed, he would at least be punished. Why did this expert show mercy to him? Also, when he said that he wanted to meet Lady Lu Ling, the other party avoided him. If Lu Ling wasn't the mountain or didn't belong to the Mountain of Dragons, he could say that there wasn't such a person here. Everything made Lu Li more certain that Lu Ling was on the mountain. Furthermore, she knew that he was here. Sister. Lu Li's expression became agitated as he let out a dragon roar. Sister, I am Lu Li. I know you're up there. I came to the divinity from the Heaven Reverse universe to look for you. I don't care why you don't want to meet me. At least answer me, sister. Drip, drip. On the peak of the Mountain of Dragons, a graceful lady stood by the cliff. Her face was covered with a veil. However, at this moment, 2 streams of tears flowed down silently, wetting the veil. Chapter 1544. The girl was in a white dress. Her face was covered by a veil so that no one could see her face. She had a graceful figure, and she was young. But she was powerful. One could tell that she was as powerful as a super mighty warrior in the divinity. Behind the woman stood a red-haired elder. The elder's eyebrows were red, and he looked quite old. He wore a large red robe and looked quite strange. The old man did not have any energy. He seemed to be an average person, but there would be a glow in his eyes every now and then. Nobody dared to belittle him. Seeing the woman's tears flowing down like a river, the red-haired, red-browed old man couldn't help but call out, "Miss!" The woman's delicate body trembled slightly. She reached her hand into the light gauze and wiped her face. She didn't say anything. She just quietly looked at the bottom of the cliff, as if she could see through the thick white fog and see the situation down there. Sister, I know you are up there. I am Lu Li, and I am here for you. I know you must have your reasons. It's okay if you don't want to see me. I just want you to answer me, sister. From down there came another shout. The girl trembled. She could no longer hold back her tears. They gushed out like a spring. Seeing that the girl was trembling more and more violently, the red-haired old man reminded her coldly, "Young lady, you know how strict the family is. If you dare to break the rules, you will be locked up for 1,000 years. But the people down there will die." "I know," the girl nodded. Her voice was trembling. She lowered her head and said, "Grandpa Nya, can you send a message for me? Tell him he is too weak to see the person he wants to see. Tell him to go back and cultivate. When he becomes a supreme warrior in the divinity, the person will come." The red-haired old man frowned. He shook his head and said, "I cannot say that. It is suggestive and my family will blame me. I can only tell him to come back to the Mountain of Dragons after he becomes a supreme warrior in the divinity." The girl turned to the red-haired old man. Seeing that the old man was not moved, she nodded. The old man moved his lips. Lu Li, who was about to say something else, heard another voice in his head. "If you continue to pester me endlessly, I will kill you. Leave now. If you want to go to the Mountain of Dragons, come back when you reach the supreme stage in the divinity." The elder's words contained an irresistible pressure. His words also contained a strange soul attack. In Lu Li's soul, there was an idea that he could not disobey the old man or else he would die. Lu Li trembled. Even though the old man didn't express anything, Lu Li could tell there was something special in it. He had pestered the old man for so long, but not only did he not kill him, he didn't even punish him. Instead, he told him that if he wanted to go to Mount Silver Dragon, he had to cultivate to the Paragon level. The old man's attitude and words implied one thing. For the sake of certain someone, he didn't do anything to Lu Li, and he also hoped that Lu Li would stop pestering him endlessly. If he didn't, it wouldn't be just him, and that person would be in a difficult position. After all, the only way to meet that person was to become a paragon of the god world. That was to say, the old man vaguely told Lu Li some information. Lu Ling might be his sister. But Lu Ling could not meet Lu Li now due to some unforeseen circumstances. If Lu Li wanted to meet her, He must reach the paragon level in the divinity. Paragon level in the divinity. Luli felt his heart was weighed down. He could kill many super mighty warriors in the divinity, but that didn't mean that he had reached the divinity's realm. He was just a mighty warrior in the divinity, a long way from reaching the paragon level. Also, it was said that to reach the paragon level in the divinity, one must go through heaven's tribulation. Heaven's tribulation was dangerous. Many super mighty warriors in the divinity had the chance to reach the paragon level, but they didn't dare to go through heaven's tribulation at will. Of those who did, several would die. What if he could never reach the paragon level in the divinity? Would he never be able to go to Mount Silver Dragon and see Lu Ling? Lu Ling knew he was here, but she didn't come to see him. Or to be exact, she could not. It meant that Lu Ling's life was not going her way. She couldn't even see her brother or talk to him. Lu Ling's life at Mount Silver Dragon was not hard to imagine. "Sister, wait for me. I will go to Mount Silver Dragon and bring you back as soon as possible," Lu Ling murmured to herself. When he came to the divinity to find Lu Ling, he wanted to see if she was doing well. If she was doing well, he wouldn't force her to be separated from her parents. If not, he would find a way to bring her back. "Sister, I am leaving. Take care and wait for me," Lu Ling shouted again and bowed to the mountain. Then he turned around and left with determination. He walked for more than a mile. He suddenly turned back and looked at the mountain. He hoped he could see that dreamy figure. Unfortunately, the mountain was shrouded in mist. He couldn't see anything. "Let's go." He made up his mind and left. His steps were steady, but he looked lonely and bleak. The setting sun cast a long shadow on his back. "I am sorry, I am sorry, I am sorry." He couldn't see the person on the mountain, but the person on the mountain could see him. The lady with a graceful figure murmured. Tears ran down from her face under the veil. "Let's go, young lady." The old man with red hair and red eyebrows shook his head, sighed, and said, "This is your destiny to be born in the Dragon Rebel Valley. Either you accept it or you become stronger and take control of your own destiny. This is the destiny that no one in the Dragon Rebel Valley can escape from." The lady nodded. She looked into the distance and left, leaving only a few drops of tears in the air. What the lady and the old man didn't know was there was a small hill to the left of Mount Silver Dragon where two old men were sitting. If Lu Ling were here, he would be so shocked that his eyes would pop out. The two old men were old acquaintances. One of them could be considered half a master to him. One of the two old men had white hair and a white beard. He was short and looked like an amiable grandpa next door. The other one had a fan in his hand. He didn't seem to be a powerful warrior at all. Instead, he was more like a sorcerer in disguise. Astro Emperor, the number one of the Purgatory's top 10, and Blood Emperor, Lu Li's former master, were in the divinity. What was more, they happened to be at the foot of Mount Silver Dragon. They were playing chess here in peace. If Lu Ling could see them, he would think he'd seen ghosts. Back in the days, the two were believed to have no chance of ascending to the divinity. The two were playing chess leisurely. Astro Emperor seemed to be at ease, as if he were in his own backyard. Blood Emperor appeared to be calm, but his eyes would flicker every now and then. One could tell that he was in a state of turmoil. Astro Emperor put down a piece. Looking at Blood Emperor with a smile, he said, Blood Emperor, you have something to worry about. You have lost this game." The Blood Emperor smiled bitterly and threw away the chess piece in his hand, admitting defeat. He looked up at the Star Emperor and said, "Star Emperor, this brat has suffered so much, but he still has no chance to meet his sister. He looks so pitiful. Can't you help him?" "No." Chapter 1545. Walking in the wild, Lu Ling was at a loss. It was getting dark, and he was in the darkness. There were no stars tonight, and it was especially dark. He looked around in a daze, feeling the night breeze. For a moment, he had a feeling. The world was a big place. Where was home? After he came to the divinity, he had been wandering around. There were only two places that made him feel at home. One was the Chamber of Relics, and the other was the Massacre Shrine. Chief of the Chamber of Relics, Great Patriarch Gu, and Patriarch Gu were killed. Luli did not know what had become of the Chamber of Relics. As for the massacre shrine, it was a thing of the past. Kunlun Mountain should be occupied by other forces. The divinity was boundless with billions of immortals. But Luli felt lonely at the moment. In the divinity, he felt he was like a rootless duckweed, drifting with the wind. He could no longer stay in the divinity, so he went to the land of Yuyan. He could no longer stay at the land of Yuyan, so he had to go back to the divinity. It was not easy for him to get news of Lu Ling, but he had no chance to meet her. He could not even talk to her. Luli felt aggrieved. He jumped to a mountain and bellowed into the sky. His bellow was filled with loss, frustration, and sorrow. Chirp, in the distance, a flock of ferocious beasts in the woods was alarmed. They flew to the sky and whooshed toward Luli. Some of the nearby martial artists were also alarmed, and one after another, they came over to investigate in astonishment. Piss off! Seeing a flock of ferocious birds flying towards him, Luli, who was already in a bad mood, took out his demon slayer in rage and swung it down. A ray of blood-red light came out. Over a dozen ferocious beasts were cut in half. They fell to the ground with a sad cry. Run! The warriors that wanted to come over to watch were frightened. Those ferocious beasts were not average wild beasts. How could more than a dozen of them be killed in one move? Luli's bellow revealed that he was in a bad mood. Naturally, those warriors did not dare to come closer. Whoosh, whoosh, Luli hacked for several times and killed over 100 ferocious beasts. Only then did he feel better. He put away the demon slayer and used the cloaking armor to hide himself. Then he left quickly. At the foot of Mount Yinlong, he shouted out his own name in desperation. If there were people nearby, they would definitely report it immediately. Once the news spread to the craftsman's sect, they would immediately send people to track him. So he had to leave as soon as possible. He went to a small city that night and teleported all the way. He didn't care where he was teleporting to. He just teleported randomly. He just wanted to get as far away from the Silver Dragon Mountain as possible so that his heart wouldn't hurt so much. After 3 days and 3 nights, Luli had no idea where he had been teleported to. He was exhausted. After arriving at a small city, he casually entered an inn and fell asleep. While Luli was sleeping, many forces in the divinity were not in peace. Luli's roars at the Mountain of Dragons alarmed some warriors. Luli's dragon roar could cover an area with a radius of more than 30 miles. During that time, a team of warriors happened to pass by. Naturally, they were alarmed. However, Silver Dragon Mountain was a forbidden area for many people nearby, so the group of martial artists did not dare to approach and only hid nearby. Later on, they heard Luli's roars and Luli's self-introduction. Luli went to the Yuyan land for some years. But what happened back then was too serious. A deputy master of the Hall of Warfare of the Craftsman's sect died. Everyone in the divinity knew about it. Therefore, the team of warriors went to nearby cities and sold the information to many forces. Space-Time Office, Hall of Life and Death, Cabinet of Mystery, and Craftsman's sect all received the news. More than a dozen of the 72 sects were located at the east. Those forces were informed as well. The name Luli had stirred up many people's nerves. Many people were wondering if a new round of bloodshed was about to come. Patriarch Leopard was relieved of his duties, but he went to the headquarters of Cabinet of Mystery at once. Craftsman's sect also took action. They took the teleportation formation of Space-Time Office to the east. At the east, more than a dozen disciples of sects were sent out to search for Luli. Scouts from other prefectures were sent out as well, searching for Luli all over the world. For Craftsman's sect, the name Luli represented humiliation. Craftsman's sect could do nothing when Luli was hiding at the Yuyan land. They would not force their way there to kill Luli. However, once Luli showed up in the divinity, Craftsman's sect must find a chance to kill Luli to wash away the humiliation. Unfortunately, Cabinet of Mystery no longer had Luli's blood. They had to send out many scouts to follow up clues. Luli had disguised himself. He was wearing a skin mask and an armor that covered his entire body. He was only a mighty warrior in the divinity. There were too many like him in the divinity. It was troublesome to find him. That being said, with the cooperation of many forces, some clues were found. For example, Luli teleported for more than 100 times. The first place he teleported to was a small city near the Mountain of Dragons. Based on this, a scout from Divine Sect had chased him all the way here and locked onto him. Without confirmed information, this Divine Sect scout leader didn't dare report it. He wanted to find Luli first and then ask around. If he could be sure that it was Luli, he would be rewarded handsomely when he reported it to Craftsman's sect. After Luli slept for 2 days and 1 night, the scout leader found the small city Luli was in. He took the teleportation formation of Space-Time Office and arrived at the small city. The scout leader did not go in person, nor did he dare to. He went to the tavern where Luli was in disguise. At the same time, he sent 2 other teams to check in and make some arrangements. Bang! The 2 teams he arranged had a fight in the tavern over a trivial matter. Some of the 2 teams were disguised as young masters of major families. They fought in the tavern, which caused many castles in the tavern to collapse. Whoosh! Luli's clothes were disheveled. He flew out from the ruins of castle. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. He used psychic power to check at once. When he saw that it was just 2 young masters fighting over a beauty and that there were no experts nearby, he heaved a sigh of relief and flew down. White hair. That man is probably Luli. The scout leader, who was pretending to be watching in the corner, had a glint in his eyes. Luli was sleeping, so he did not put on his armor. The moment the castle collapsed, he rushed out at once and forgot to cover his silver hair. The scout leader made up his mind based on the clues he found. What? Oh no. The scout leader had just made up his mind when a blood-red glare came. Luli made a move. He used the Slayer's move and used force in heaven and earth at the same time. Bang! The scout leader was not strong. He was blasted into a mist of blood. Luli made several more moves, killing the 2 teams that were putting on a show. Then, he began to draw a formation in the void. Before he flew away, he sent a message to the city. Please tell Craftsman's sect that I, Luli, am back. If you want to get back at me, come at me. Also, tell all the forces in the divinity that I don't want to make trouble. I will fight to the death with anyone that helps Craftsman's sect to hunt me down. Chapter 1546. It was not difficult for Luli to find out that something was wrong with those people. He had seen too many jealous young masters. Over the years, he had killed many young masters as well. The 2 disguised young masters were fine in their disguises, but not in their temperament. They were not young masters and did not have the temperament of a young master. They could not fake it no matter how hard they tried. There was also the girl that the 2 young masters were jealous of. The young lady's acting was too exaggerated. Her eyes darted around. She did not behave like a young lady at all. She looked more like a girl from a brothel. More importantly, when the 2 groups were fighting, they would look at Luli every now and then. It was illogical. The 2 groups had been fighting for such a long time, and no one was seriously injured, let alone killed. It was unprofessional. After that, Luli left, leaving behind a city full of terrified civilians. Many of them were frightened by the name Luli. Many years ago, Luli represented the god of slaughter. Some people even used Luli's name to scare naughty kids. Hearing Luli's words, people in the city thought Luli was going to slaughter the entire city in a fit of rage. Luli flew away. The city master and the warriors in the city were relieved. The city master thought about it and decided to report. Luli said that he would fight to the death for those who helped the Craftsman's sect to hunt him down. The city master thought Luli was only going to report to the higher-ups, and he would not help. That being said, the city master played a trick. He sent someone to the teleportation formation and tampered with it. The teleportation formation was broken for an hour. When it was repaired, the city master sent someone to report to the prefectural city. Not reporting such a serious matter was punishable by death. Being Luli's enemy was also punishable by death. As such, the city master chose to compromise and not help either side. If the higher-ups tried to suppress it, the city master could say yes on the surface, but do in secret. The news was sent to the chief, who reported to the craftsman's sect at once. The news spread out. In half a day, many forces had received the news. Before Luli left, the entire city heard what he said. It cannot be suppressed. The news spread like a rolling snowball. In a day, almost the entire Eastern divinity was informed. The Eastern divinity was in an uproar. It was as if a huge rock had been thrown into a pool of stagnant water. The immortal realm, which had been peaceful for a few years, would soon become lively again. Luli, the god of slaughter, showed up again. He made it clear that he was going against the craftsman's sect. He also threatened the major forces in the divinity that he would fight to the death if they helped the craftsman's sect. When the craftsman's sect hunted down Luli, many forces helped. The masters of those prefectures had mobilized armies to search for Luli. Now that Luli had spoken, some of the major forces were terrified. The two divine sects in the eastern part of the god world were terrified. One sect master's wife died, and the other sect master's subordinates betrayed. If he helped the craftsman's sect, he would be able to obtain great benefits. At the very least, he would be able to get a discount when he bought divine artifacts in the future. If he could really kill Luli, craftsman's sect would offer him several holy grade relics, and he would establish a relationship with craftsman's sect. But, of course, that was under the premise that they could kill Luli. If they could not, the craftsman's sect would give them nothing, and they would have to bear the risk. Last time, Luli was able to kill the vice master of the Hall of Warfare with Fury of Thor. It had been so many years. Who could say for sure that Luli had not improved? Or perhaps he hadn't researched a weapon more terrifying than Thunder God's Fury. Of course, some were terrified and some were enraged. A master of a sect called Hall of Darkness said that Luli was too arrogant, and they swore that they would help craftsman's sect to kill Luli. Whether it was the Hall of Darkness trying to butter up craftsman's sect or the master of darkness disliked Luli's arrogance. In short, not only did the Hall of Darkness send out a message, but they also mobilized many warriors to search for Luli all over the eastern part of the divinity. Apart from the super mighty warrior that stayed behind in the divinity, all the masters were sent out. Patriarch Leopard and Patriarch Neo had arrived. Last time, they failed to hunt down Luli, which was a great humiliation to them. This time, they asked in person to come and kill Luli. Craftsman Sect sent out not only two supreme warriors from the divinity, but another one, the new master of Hall of Warfare, Patriarch Kwang. 3 supreme warriors from the divinity were teleported to the eastern part of the divinity just for Luli. At the same time, Craftsman's Sect mobilized many warriors and scouts. They also sent out several races with strong tracking abilities and hired some assassin organizations. This time, Craftsman's Sect planned to spend hundreds of billions of divine sources just to kill Luli. The Master Craftsman's Sect sent out a message in person. If Luli was found, and he was not sure, he should send a message, and she would be teleported over to kill Luli in person. Patriarch Kwang issued a reward on behalf of Craftsman's Sect. He announced that anyone that could provide clues about Luli would be rewarded with 100 million divine sources. Anyone that could find Luli and lead the powerful warriors of Craftsman's Sect to Luli would be rewarded with 10 billion divine sources. If they could help kill Luli, Craftsman's Sect would give them 10 holy grade relics and owe them a favor. The entire divinity was stirred up by the news. 10 billion divine sources to find Luli? If they could get 10 billion divine sources, a small force could rise up immediately. 10 billion divine sources was not a small number, even for major forces. Even the divinity was interested. Craftsman's Sect had no other choice. Luli could hide, fly in the void, and disguise himself. The divinity was a vast place. It would be difficult for them to track down Luli. They offered a huge reward to put Luli in a tight spot. Luli could be exposed no matter where he was hiding. Of course, if Luli was exposed, he could fly away at once. However, if he was exposed constantly, Craftsman's Sect could seize a chance. They did not need too many chances. Just one would be enough. They could ask the master of Craftsman's Sect to come forward and work with the 3 supreme warriors in the divinity. They could kill Luli and wash away the humiliation. Many people in the Eastern divinity began to move. Apart from eating and sleeping, they were looking for Luli. If they could find some clues about Luli, they could get 100 million divine sources. Where else could they find such a good deal? They risked their lives to hunt wild beasts, to mine, and to collect herbs. Yet, they could only earn tens of thousands of divine sources a year. Luli became famous again. This time, it was not because of the title of godly killer, but because of his value. Many people compared Luli to a divine source beast. If they could find a divine source beast, they could have enough divine sources for the rest of their lives. Luli went missing. He had been missing for 27 days since he last showed up in the small city. On the 28th day, he showed up in the dark forest and started a merciless massacre. There were tens of thousands of warriors in the dark forest, including the elderly, women, and children. Apart from the elderly, women, and children, all the warriors were killed. Not a single one was spared, including the super mighty warriors who stayed behind in the divinity. All the heads were piled up neatly, forming a tall tower. It was a spectacular sight. The entire dark forest was dyed red, and all the buildings inside were razed to the ground. The dark forest was famous in the Eastern divinity because it was the headquarters of the Shrine of Darkness, one of the 72 sections. The master of the Shrine of Darkness, who had been clamoring about killing Luli, spat out blood and fainted on the ground when he learned that his sons and grandsons had all been killed. When the news spread, all the warriors who were still searching for Luli felt chills running down their spines. Luli had used cruel means to tell the world that he was not joking. Those who dared to help the craftsman's sect and go against him would suffer his merciless revenge. Chapter 1547. Did you hear about the Forest of Darkness? The Forest of Darkness. Isn't that the headquarters of the Shrine of Darkness? What happened? Tragic. All the warriors that stayed behind were killed. None escaped. Heads piled up like a pyramid and blood flowed like a river. 6 sons and dozens of grandsons of Master Luo Yi of the Shrine of Darkness were killed. I heard that his wives and concubines were scared out of their wits. The Forest of Darkness has become hell. What? Who did it? Didn't the Shrine of Darkness rely on the craftsman's sect? Which force is so bold? Is this going to defy the heavens? Not a force. It was done by one man. His name is Luli. Luli? The god of massacre Luli? The craftsman's sect is offering a reward of 10 billion. Just to find him? Who else can it be other than him? Apart from a devil like him, who else could be so ruthless? Back at the Mansion of Beasts, he dared to use Thunder God to slaughter a city. What can he not do? We're going to look for some clues. It is said that any useful clue can reward us with 100 million divine sources. Which is more important, divine sources or life? Go ahead. I will not go. This man is a lunatic. He dared to wipe out the Shrine of Darkness. If we help the craftsman's sect, and he finds out, our forces will be wiped out in an instant. God of Death, he really is the God of Death. Every move he makes is earth-shattering. In a tea house in a small town, Luli was sitting leisurely and drinking tea. He heard all kinds of comments. At first, Luli would listen carefully, but he would stop after a while. He was wearing a mask given by Pan Yuqin. It was a human skin mask. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Luli did not put on a cold expression. He could laugh or be angry. It was as if he had a thin layer of skin on his face. The mask could change. At the moment, Luli was a middle-aged man with a pale face. He had changed into a white robe. His hair was revealed, but it was black. Luli found a dye and dyed his hair black. In this way, others would not pay attention to him because of his white hair. Killing in the Forest of Darkness was not too stressful for him. The master of the Shrine of Darkness was a supreme warrior in the divinity, but there was only one of him. There were a total of 3 super almighties from the immortal world, and 2 of them had been taken out. It was easy for Luli to kill them. As soon as he used his power of space, they were like chickens and ducks waiting to be slaughtered. Luli had thought of using the mountain to kill all of them, but in the end, he did not harden his heart. There were many children in the dark forest, women who could not even trust a chicken, and old people lying in bed. He had never thought of himself as a good person, but sometimes he still had to abide by some principles and bottom lines. The great secluded in the city, while the small secluded in the wilderness. During this time, Luli didn't hide in the wild. Instead, he liked to live in a small town. He didn't dare to go to the big cities. What if he ran into a supreme expert from the divine world? There were as many small cities in the immortal world as there were hairs on a cow. Moreover, the martial artists in the small cities were not strong, and there were almost no super almighties in the immortal world. There were a lot of almighty beings in the immortal world. Recently, all the major powers had sent out a lot of experts to search, and almighty beings were everywhere. Luli did not know where to go. He came back to the divinity to cultivate. He did not expect that he would make such a big fuss. He had to take it one step at a time. Since the craftsman's sect was determined to kill him, he could not run away with his tail between his legs. That was not his principle. What happened in the dark forest soon spread across the divinity. Everyone knew about Lu Li's return. In a castle of the pavilion of misty drizzle, Lu Shi was drinking with a lady in his arms. He had been cultivating and only came out yesterday. He was bored out of his mind after several years of cultivation. At once, he asked an old friend to have a friendly match. "Young Master Shi, have you heard?" The lady fed Lu Shi a goblet of fine wine and grabbed Lu Shi's hand that was about to do something naughty. She pursed her lips and said, "Your good brother has come out of seclusion. He is making the entire divinity restless." "Good friend?" Lu Shi frowned. He stopped his hand that was about to reach into the lady's dress. He thought about it for a while. Then his eyes glowed and he asked, "You mean Luli?" "Yes," the lady said with a smile. "Young Master Shi, didn't you say that you were close to him? Is he really your good friend?" Slap. Lu Shi slapped the lady's plump bottom and snorted. "How dare you question me? You deserve it. I have been through life and death with him. He has come back from the land of Yuyin. Tell me more." The lady was patted on the buttocks. Instead of being angry, she blushed and her eyes were flirtatious. She rolled her eyes at Lu Shi and told him what had happened. "Ha ha ha, well done." Lu Shi laughed. He took a gulp from the jar and grinned. The brother Lu Shi recognized as awesome. One dark forest is not enough. Killing 10 is more fun. "Shoo." The lady covered Lu Shi's mouth at once. "Young Master Shi, don't say that. Luli, you have been neglected in the pavilion of misty drizzle. If you continue to spread the news, you will be punished severely. What is there to be afraid of?" Lu Shi laughed. Lu Shi do not have to care about others. They are afraid of the craftsman's sect, but I am not. Just you wait. One day, my good friend will rise to the top and stand at the peak of the divinity. By then, Master will come to apologize to me in person and say that Lu Shi, have good taste. The lady was fascinated by Lu Shi's unrestrained behavior. She sighed and said, never mind. Do as you wish. This servant likes your temperament. Lord, let this servant serve you." "Okay." Lu Shi gulped down the wine and laughed. "I am in a good mood today. Let's fight for 300 rounds. I will make you beg for mercy on your knees." "Lord," the lady felt weak. Her cheeks were burning and her eyes were filled with thirst. She was like a cat that smelled blood. Palace of Snow Mountain. Holy Princess had been cultivating and she had been making rapid progress. As the next palace master of the Snow Mountain Palace, the palace had spent the best divine materials and resources on Holy Maiden Snow. Holy Princess had always been talented. Naturally, her cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds. She was one step away from becoming a super mighty warrior in the divinity. Her ranking on the list was over 10,000. Recently, Holy Princess did not cultivate. She sat by a cliff in the Palace of Snow Mountain, gazing to the east. Nobody could tell what was on her mind. Rustle, rustle, rustle. She heard some footsteps behind her. Then, she heard a gentle voice. "Jingya, forget about him. He is destined to be like a shooting star. Either he becomes eternal or he vanishes. In the future, you will be in charge of the Palace of Snow Mountain. If you're going to marry, your husband must join the palace of Snow Mountain. Therefore, you and him are destined to be together, but not together." "I know." Holy Princess sighed. She stood up and bowed. "Master, I know everything. Many years ago, I told myself that he and I are not meant for each other. But I still cannot stay calm when I hear about him again. 9 out of 10 people will not go their way." Chapter 1548. Southern Divinity, Scorpio Province. The prefectural city glowed as a middle-aged man came out from the teleportation formation. He had a hideous scar on his face and a fierce look in his eyes. He was covered in armor. Clearly, he was not a kind man. The middle-aged man took a look and went to a nearby teleportation formation. While walking, he took out a map and murmured, "Soon, I will be at the Sunset City in a dozen more times." The Sunset City was a large city, the one closest to the Chamber of Relics. That man was Luli. Everyone at the Eastern Divinity was looking for him, but he had taken teleportation formations to the Southern Divinity. Luli was here because he wanted to pay his respects to Patriarch Gu. Patriarch Gu was his real teacher, and he owed him a great debt of gratitude. Now that he was back in the Divinity, he would feel guilty if he did not pay his respects. Also, there were too many powerful warriors at the Eastern Divinity and too many scouts. He would be exposed if he went there. Therefore, he came to the Southern Divinity and asked them to search there. He did not know where to go recently. He might as well take a look. After 7 or 8 rounds of teleportation, he found a tavern to rest and went to the Wicked Bee directly. Luli did not let Shishir out because he was in a hurry and could run into danger at any time. But he would go to the Wicked Bee whenever he had the time so that Shishir would not be lonely. Shishir was cultivating. She did not even know that Luli had come. Luli sat with his legs crossed next to her. Looking at her beautiful profile, Luli smiled out of instinct. This lovely lady could always awaken a man's desire to protect her. He did not want her to suffer any harm. Luli rested in the Wicked Bead for half a day and then went out. Over the past few months, Craftsman Sect could not track him down, which reassured him. At least, as long as he did not expose himself, he should be safe. Craftsman Sect was not omnipotent. The Cabinet of Mystery might not be able to track him down either. Otherwise, the pursuers would have come a long time ago. After 7 rounds of teleportation, Luli stood in the Sunset City. He was familiar with the city. The city looked the same. Back then, Jiang Xinghe and Patriarch Gu were assassinated here, but the city was not affected. Luli did not stop or teleport to the Valley of Relics. Instead, he left the city and sneaked toward the Valley of Relics. The Valley of Relics was not far from the Sunset City. In a couple of hours, Luli arrived. He did not dare to enter rashly. Instead, he circled around the area a few times, and after confirming that there were no scouts lying in ambush, he revealed himself. He disguised himself as a middle-aged merchant and swaggered toward the Valley of Artifacts. From the outside, the Valley of Relics looked the same. On the wall at the entrance stood rows of warriors. But when Luli looked up, he noticed something different. The spirit of these soldiers was clearly different from before. In the past, everyone had a proud expression on their faces, and they stood upright, dignified, and domineering. Right now, the soldiers were rather listless. 2 of them were even leaning against the city walls and chatting softly. "Who is it?" When Luli got closer, a sergeant shouted. The other sergeants turned to Luli. They were surprised to see that Luli looked like a businessman. Luli cupped his fists and said, "I am Gong Sun Yang. I want to buy some relics from the Chamber of Relics." "You want to buy relics?" The warriors looked at each other. One of them asked, "Are you sure you are here to buy relics?" Luli blinked and nodded. "If I am not here to buy relics, why would I come here to drink tea? Open the gate and show me to your chief." "Yes, Lord. Please wait a moment." Several warriors came down from the city wall and opened the gate with great enthusiasm. Luli followed them in, confused. Since when did people from the Chamber of Relics become so easy to talk to? Walking into the familiar mystical valley, what greeted their eyes was a scene of desolation. Many castles had actually been destroyed and had not been repaired. More importantly, there were not many people in the Chamber of Relics. Luli used psychic power to check. There were only hundreds of people. Luli could not help but exclaim. How lively was the Chamber of Relics! There were tens of thousands of disciples, warriors, and servants in total. The Valley of Relics was as lively as a small city. How many years had passed, and had become so dilapidated? No wonder the warriors were surprised when they heard that someone was here to buy relics. How could a Chamber of Relics, with only hundreds of people, make high-level relics? What is going on? Isn't the Chamber of Relics affiliated with the Craftsman's sect? Did the Craftsman's sect abandon the Chamber of Relics? Luli could not figure out. He followed the warriors in silence. Along the way, he saw the Valley of Relics, which was both familiar and strange. Somehow, he felt he was back in the old days. He thought of Qian Huanhan. Where was he now? How was he doing? The warrior showed Luli to the main hall. An old warrior served tea and said with respect, "Lord, please wait a moment. Our chief will be here soon." Chief. Luli was curious. Back then, Patriarch he had appointed Jiang Zuqiang as the chief. But Luli had messed things up. Which Patriarch was appointed as the chief? Wasn't this new pavilion master too useless? He had let the Chamber of Relics fall into such a miserable state. Jiang Xinghe would be heartbroken if he knew this in the afterlife. Rustle, rustle, rustle. Luli heard some footsteps in the corridor. He looked up and was surprised. It was a lady, someone he was familiar with, Jiang Ruodin. "Lord Gongsun, this is our chief, Master Jiang." The old warrior introduced Luli and then said to Jiang Ruodin, "Chief, this Lord Gongsun wants to buy some relics." It had been years since they last met. Jiang Ruodin had matured. She was no longer frivolous and childish, but she was still as beautiful as before. She bowed to Luli and said, "Lord Gongsun, what relics are you looking for? We can only make high-quality relics. If you need, I think we can work together." High-quality relics? Luli was even more surprised. There were so many patriarchs in the Chamber of Relics, and all of them could make supreme relics. Now, they could only sell high-quality relics. Were all the patriarchs gone? Luli could not help but check with psychic power. None of the patriarchs were here except for the young craftsman. He thought for a while and said, "Master Jiang, I have a question. There were so many craftsmen in the Chamber of Relics. How come none of them are here? I want to buy supreme relics. I'm not interested in high-quality relics." "Lord, you don't know?" Jiang Ruodin frowned. She was sure that Luli was confused. She said bitterly, 30,000 miles to the west of the Chamber of Relics, there is a Hall of Relics. Almost all the patriarchs of the Chamber of Relics have gone there. "Lord, if you want to buy supreme relics, you will have to go to the Hall of Relics." "What?" Luli sensed something was off. A glint of coldness rose in his eyes as he asked, "Who is the chief of the Hall of Relics?" Jiang Ruodin hesitated for a moment before she answered, "Jiang Zuqiang." "I see." Chapter 1549. The Chamber of Relics was not a secret in Southern Divinity. Almost everyone knew about it. It was just that Luli did not ask. On the day Luli left, Jiang Zuqiang did not become the cabinet master as he wished. When Luli escaped, Patriarch he and the others teleported back to the craftsman's sect. Nobody cared about the Chamber of Relics anymore. In the following days, craftsman's sect was busy hunting Luli. They had no time to deal with the Chamber of Relics. Jiang Zuqiang wanted to take the position by force. Unfortunately, Luli's actions had tarnished his reputation. Also, without the support of the craftsman's sect, several patriarchs objected. The problem was, Jiang Xinghe, Long Shuisha, Elder Gu, and the others had all died in battle. The Divine Artifact Pavilion did not have a reputable expert to stand up for them. No one was willing to submit to anyone, so the position of Pavilion Master remained empty. Jiang Zuqiang tried to force his way up, but failed several times. In a fit of anger, he left the Artifact Pavilion with a group of people and built an artifact hall nearby, making himself the Hall Master. After Jiang Zuqiang left to establish his own sect, the decline of the artifact pavilion began. Jiang Zuqiang began to spread rumors that the craftsman sect could not kill Lu Li because he came from the Chamber of Relics. Therefore, the craftsman sect might vent their anger on the Chamber of Relics. They might capture and kill everyone in the Chamber of Relics to threaten Lu Li to his death. The group of refiners in the artifact pavilion usually immersed themselves in refining and paid no attention to the affairs of the world. How would they know these things? For a moment, all of them were in a state of panic. Jiang Zuqiang secretly began to rope in refiners. Some refiners were afraid of being killed, so they all turned to the divine artifact hall. Isn't refining anywhere the same? Later, Jiang Zuqiang successfully contacted an elder of the craftsman's sect to support him. The elders of the artifact pavilion thought that the craftsman's sect was completely on the side of the artifact hall. More elders betrayed them, and the reputation of the artifact hall completely suppressed the artifact pavilion. A few more things happened in the following years. For example, a few elders who were loyal to the Chamber of Relics died mysteriously. For example, the books in the artifact pavilion had been quietly stolen, and even many divine materials in the inner vault had mysteriously disappeared. More and more disciples and elders joined the Hall of Artifacts. The Hall of Artifacts only existed in name. The craftsman sect also firmly believed that the Artifact Hall would replace the Artifact Pavilion and become their branch force. By now, the elders of the Chamber of Relics were either dead or betrayed the Chamber of Relics. Jiang Ruodin was the only one who was struggling to hold on. Long Xuesha's grandson, Long Yanhai, and the others had all defected. Jiang Zuqiang had once said that he would let Jiang Ruodin go over and continue to give her a good life and a high status. Jiang Ruodin refused. The unruly young mistress of the past had finally grown up. She stood up when the artifact pavilion was about to be dissolved. She used Jiang Xinghe's influence to suppress a small number of people and became the new pavilion master of the artifact pavilion. Moreover, they had been struggling to hold on for all these years. Otherwise, the divine artifact pavilion would have become history long ago. She swore that she would protect this foundation for Jiang Xinghe. Unless she died, the artifact pavilion would never perish. Jiang Zuqiang. Lu Li repeated the name several times. Back then, he was against Jiang Zuqiang's promotion because he was afraid that Jiang Zuqiang would ruin the Chamber of Relics. Jiang Xinghe and Patriarch Gu would not be able to rest in peace if they knew. How many years has it been? Jiang Zuqiang had completely destroyed the foundation of the Chamber of Relics. Lu Li didn't even have to ask for proof. He could figure out Jiang Zuqiang's despicable means. Otherwise, how come none of the patriarchs were here? Many of the patriarchs were loyal to the Chamber of Relics. They must have been killed. Buzzing, Lu Li's finger glowed. He took out an interspatial ring and put it on the table. I will not go to the Hall of Relics. The Chamber of Relics is well known. I prefer to do business with you. I want a high-quality relic as well. This is part of the down payment. Make a list of the relics you can make and give me. Lady Dan was confused. Over the years, almost no one came to them for forging artifacts. After all, almost all the craftsmen of the Chamber of Relics were in the Hall of Relics. This man had heard about the Hall of Relics and was willing to come to them. The business had not been settled yet, and he had already made a down payment. The Chamber of Relics was in need of divine sources. Jiang Ruodin did not argue. She took over the ring and checked it with psychic power. Her hand trembled and the ring fell off. "Chief, what is it?" The old man next to her asked with concern. Jiang Ruodin opened her mouth. Her breaths were short because of her nervousness. Her breasts were trembling. She gulped and said, "Lord Gongsun, you must have given us the wrong divine sources. There must be at least 1 billion divine sources in there." 1 billion. The old servant of the Jiang family was so scared that his legs gave way. The number scared him to death. The Chamber of Relics seemed to be a large organization. However, almost all of its assets were divided up by Jiang Zuqiang and the patriarchs. Only an empty shell was left for Jiang Ruodin. Over the years, almost no one came to the Chamber of Relics to forge artifacts. Therefore, the Chamber of Relics had no income. The salaries of the warriors and servants were running low. Over the years, the Chamber of Relics had to rely on the sales of the artifacts Jiang Rudin had. Otherwise, the Chamber of Relics would have been disbanded a long time ago. Now, Luli had given her 1 billion divine sources. That was a down payment. Wouldn't it be 10 billion divine sources after the deal? The old servant had never seen so many divine sources in his life. Inevitably, he was frightened. No. Soon, the old servant realized that the Chamber of Relics could not make money from divine sources. High-grade relics were not valuable. One could be sold for 10 or 20,000 divine sources. How many high-grade relics could Luli make with 10 billion divine sources? There were not many craftsmen in the Chamber of Relics. How long would it take to make so many relics? Jiang Rudin suspected that Luli had given the wrong amount. To buy high-grade relics, a few million divine sources should be enough. Luli was a mighty warrior in the divinity. Why would he buy so many low-level relics? The number is correct. Luli smiled. Actually, I did not buy relics with these divine sources. They are for you. Back then, I was on friendly terms with Pavilion Master Jiang Xinghe. I am indebted to Jiang Xinghe. Take these divine roots and run the artifact pavilion well. Don't let Pavilion Master Jiang Xinghe rest in peace. What? Jiang Ruodin stood up at once. She looked at Lu Li and then bowed. Choking with sobs, she said, "Thank you, sir. I will do my best. Show me to his grave. I want to pay my respects to my old friend." Lu Li waved his hand, acting like an old man. It was as if he really was Jiang Xinghe's old friend. Jiang Ruodin put away the interspatial ring at once and led Lu Li out. She led Lu Li to the back of the mountain where there were several tombs. Jiang Xinghe, Patriarch Gu, and Long Xuesha all had tombstones. They must be cenotaphs. Since Jiang Ruodin and the old servant were here, Lu Li could not kneel. He had to burn joss sticks and burn joss paper. Even though he was paying respects to Jiang Xinghe, he could not help but look at Patriarch Gu's tombstone. Patriarch Gu's face popped up in his mind. For a moment, Lu Li was in a trance. Gazing at Lu Li's profile, Jiang Ruodin was in a trance as well. Lu Li's appearance had changed completely, but his eyes were the same. Therefore, Jiang Ruodin found him both familiar and strange. Chapter 1550. At first, Lady Dan loathed Lu Li. She even hated him. On the first day, Lu Li came to Chamber of Relics. She whipped Lu Li. Later on, the resentment grew. Many times, she wanted to kill Lu Li for revenge. Gradually, however, she changed her opinion of Lu Li. Before Lu Li left, Lu Li scolded Jiang Zuqiang in front of everyone. He swore that he would avenge Patriarch Gu, Jiang Xinghe, and the others. From that moment on, Lady Dan changed her opinion of Lu Li. She had thought that Lu Li was doomed. However, Craftsman's sect had been after him for such a long time. They had mobilized so many people and spent so many treasures. Yet, Lu Li was still alive. Lady Dan and the others felt they were not as good as Lu Li. They even felt ashamed of their inferiority. Lu Li had done what they didn't dare to do, and he had survived. For them, this was a miracle, something that could never happen. They even felt proud of Lu Li. Jiang Zuqiang said that Craftsman's sect would vent their anger on Chamber of Relics because of Lu Li. Some disciples claimed that Chamber of Relics' current situation was caused by Lu Li. Jiang Ruodin did not think so. Even without Lu Li, Chamber of Relics would still end up the same after Jiang Xinghe and the others died. She was grateful to Lu Li. She believed that Chamber of Relics could survive because Lu Li was still alive. Otherwise, it would have been annexed or destroyed. Lu Li was from Chamber of Relics. Many forces were afraid that Lu Li would come back one day. If they annexed or destroyed Chamber of Relics, Lu Li would seek revenge. Chamber of Relics didn't have much to offer. Apart from occupying a good piece of land, it had nothing else. It was unnecessary to take such a risk. Jiang Ruodin had lived with Lu Li for some time. She knew Lu Li better. No matter how hard a person tried to disguise himself, it was difficult to change the look in one's eyes and some habits. Therefore, Jiang Ruodin had discovered Lu Li's identity and pointed it out. Lu Li did not do anything. He did not even show any emotion. He turned to Jiang Ruodin and asked, "Master Jiang, who is Lu Li?" Lu Li did not admit it. But when he looked into Jiang Ruodin's eyes, the latter could tell many things from his eyes. Jiang Ruodin was smart. She awkwardly stroked her hair and said, "I'm sorry, Lord Gong's son. I was mistaken." Even though Lu Li denied it verbally, he had admitted it in his eyes. Jiang Ruodin pretended to be suppressing her emotions, but she was still trembling. Tears welled up in her eyes. She had had a hard time all these years. She was a young lady from a wealthy family. In the past, she only knew how to throw a tantrum. However, she was forced to become the leader of a pavilion and hold up the sky for the Chamber of Relics. She had endured too much pressure and suffered too much. Sometimes, she even had the urge to commit suicide because she felt very helpless, very afraid, and very lonely. At this moment, she was overwhelmed with emotions because Lu Li was the first person who had come to help her after all these years. He was the first person she felt she could rely on and the first person she could talk to about her grievances and pain. "Uncle Lu." After a while, Jiang Ruodin couldn't help but wave her hand and say, "Go to the back of the mountain and guard it. No one is allowed to come in." The old servant threw Lu Li a few curious glances and left quickly. As soon as he left, Jiang Ruodin burst into tears. She was trembling. She wanted to say something, but now she could not. All she wanted was to cry. Lu Li said nothing, nor did he do anything to comfort her. He just looked at Jiang Ruodin quietly, giving her a chance to vent her emotions. "Lu Li." A moment later, Jiang Ruodin looked up at Lu Li with tears in her eyes and asked, "Can I hug you?" Lu Li didn't feel anything. He sighed and reached out his hands. He knew that Jiang Ruodin did not fall in love with him. She simply wanted a shoulder to lean on and someone to vent her emotions. "Woo woo." Jiang Ruodin threw herself into Lu Li's arms and cried her heart out. Soon, Lu Li's robe was soaked in her tears. Feeling the softness of the soft body in his arms and the two perky mounds in front of his chest, Lu Li didn't feel any lust. Instead, he felt pity. Jiang Ruodin and Qi Shi were similar. It was just that Qi Shi was luckier. She had Lu Li to shield her from the wind and rain to rely on. At least, she didn't have to bear so much pressure. That being said, there were too many people and things like this in the divinity. Wasn't he under pressure as well? He was almost surrounded by enemies in the world. It took him a long time to find her, but he could not even see her. Lu Li was tired as well. He could empathize with Jiang Ruodin. He could not do too much for Jiang Ruodin, because doing too much would bring harm to Jiang Ruodin and the Chamber of Relics. Lu Li was the biggest threat to the Craftsman's sect. The Craftsman's sect and many forces were looking for him. If he supported Jiang Ruodin and helped the Chamber of Relics too much, the Chamber of Relics might be destroyed and Jiang Ruodin would die. Therefore, Lu Li gave Jiang Ruodin 1 billion divine sources and he would do something for her. On the surface, he would not have too much to do with the Chamber of Relics, and he could not give Jiang Ruodin too much help. "I am sorry." Jiang Ruodin cried for an hour before she calmed down. She wiped her tears, looked up, and said with an apologetic smile, "Lu Li, I am sorry that I have made your clothes wet. I am sorry for making you laugh." "Lady Dan." Lu Li looked at Jiang Ruodin with a smile. "I'm glad that you have grown up. Master Jiang will be happy to know this in the afterlife. Don't be upset. There are many people in the world who are more tired than you, and they're living with determination. As long as we are alive, there will be hope. Everything will get better as long as we work hard. We are still weak now, but we are all working hard. Who can say that in 10 or 100 years, we cannot reach a higher level? What if we cannot control our own lives?" If someone else said this to Jiang Ruodin, she would have dismissed it as bullsh*t. That being said, Jiang Ruodin believed in Lu Li because he had been creating miracles. Lu Li had grown from a nobody when he joined the Chamber of Relics to a famous warrior who could survive the pursuit of the Craftsman's sect. Lu Li used his own experience to make his words more convincing. It made Jiang Ruiden more determined. She felt that everything was not so bad, and she saw a glimmer of hope. She nodded and said, "Lu Li, thank you. I will live on, and I will try to rebuild the Chamber of Relics. I will restore the glory of the Chamber of Relics, and even surpass it. You too. You must live on. We all must live on. Okay." Chapter 1551. Lu Li left, but not Jiang Ruiden. As a matter of fact, Jiang Ruiden wanted to stay. If Lu Li wanted to spend the night with her, she would be happy to serve him. But she knew very well that Lu Li would not stay, and Lu Li did not like her. It would not be good for the Chamber of Relics if Lu Li stayed. Somehow, after Lu Li's visit, she felt calmer and more confident. She seemed to see some hope. Before, she had to grit her teeth and crawl forward. But now, she was walking with her head held high. 2 hours after Lu Li left, Jiang Ruiden left the Valley of Relics and went to a prefecture in the north. She said she was going to buy some materials, but she was actually going to avoid arousing suspicion. She knew that Lu Li would make a move. She knew Lu Li well. He would repay kindness with kindness and hatred with hatred. Jiang Zuqiang had destroyed the foundation of the Chamber of Relics. Jiang Xinghe and Patriarch Gu had done Lu Li a favor. He would not stand by and do nothing. To avoid being implicated, Jiang Ruiden decided to leave for the time being and go to a city in the north. In this way, she would have nothing to do with this. When a matter was settled, she would come back to clean up the mess and reorganize the Chamber of Relics. Lu Li did not take action right away. First, he asked around at the Sunset City and learned about Jiang Zuqiang. He had made up his mind to kill Jiang Zuqiang and wipe out the Chamber of Relics. But to do so, he must be skillful. Otherwise, the Chamber of Relics would be implicated. After much deliberation, he went to a small assassin organization at the Sunset City without hiring powerful warriors. He spent 100 million divine sources to hire 100 assassins, but they were all average immortals. None of them was a mighty warrior. On the third night, Lu Li set off. He sneaked out of the city. After several hours, he arrived at the mountain where the Chamber of Relics was located. The 100 assassins had arrived. They did not know the purpose of the trip yet. They were just following Lu Li's orders. Lu Li was smart. If he went to a major assassin organization and they learned that he was going to attack the Chamber of Relics, they would not accept the offer no matter how many divine sources they offered. Craftsman's sect was behind the Chamber of Relics. Anyone who killed in the Chamber of Relics would suffer the revenge of the Craftsman's sect. But this small assassin organization was not afraid of anything. The temptation of 100 million divine sources was too great. What was more, Lu Li told them to only set fire and destroy buildings. They did not have to kill anyone. So, the leader of the assassin organization finally agreed. After this was done, he would let the 100 assassins go far away or even kill them. As long as they could not find any evidence, the Craftsman's sect would not trouble them. At most, I'll just disband the assassin organization and change the name. Go! Lu Li waved his hand. He had changed his attire. He was covered in a black armor, revealing only his eyes. He took the lead and rushed forward, and the 100 people behind him immediately followed. There were guards at the entrance of the mountain, but before they could make any noise or give any warning, Lu Li waved his hands, and their bodies were shredded into pieces. Bang, 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 there were sentries on the left and right sides. Lu Li had sensed them and killed them with Space Twist. At the same time, Bloodvine came out from under Lu Li's feet and reached into the ground to check the inhibition formations. There were many skilled craftsmen in the Hall of Relics. Some of them must be skilled in formations. The Hall of Relics was their headquarters. Of course, there would be some inhibition formations. Master, there are some small inhibition formations on the mountain. I have cracked them. You can go all the way up. I will keep an eye on them. Blood Fairy said. Lu Li nodded and led the way. The 100 assassins stared at Lu Li's back with awe and admiration. With a wave of his hand, warriors in the distance could be shredded. What kind of skill was that? Lu Li said that they did not have to do anything. Did he mean that he could wipe out everyone in the Chamber of Relics all by himself? Bang, bang, bang. As Luli waved his hand again and again, the sentries on the two sides were killed as soon as they noticed Luli. They did not have the time to react, not even to scream. Surprisingly, the journey was smooth. They reached the top of the mountain easily. At the top of the mountain was a big city with a glaring shield on the city wall. Looking from the distance, they could see warriors standing on the city wall. Luli did not go down to the city at once. Instead, he told the others to hide. Blood Fairy had reached out her tentacles. Without cracking the shield, going over now would be tantamount to launching a forceful attack. This formation is not so good. Give me an hour. Soon, Blood Fairy replied. Luli and the other assassins secretly told them to wait for an hour. The assassins were confused. Since they had come to the mountain, why didn't they take action right away? Weren't they afraid that the Hall of Relics would notice them if they waited for an hour? Less than an hour later, the city barrier suddenly flashed and disappeared. The assassins were stunned. Did Luli arrange for a mole to turn off the shield? Charge! Luli yelled. He took the lead and dashed into the city. With a wave of his hand, hundreds of warriors on the city wall were killed. Like a ferocious tiger, Luli leaped to the city wall and shouted, Jiang Zuqiang, you are guilty of unpardonable crimes. Someone asked us to buy your life. Go to hell. Whoosh, 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 the Hall of Relics was in an uproar. Many powerful warriors came out, including dozens from the divinity and one super mighty warrior. Jiang Zuqiang is one of them. Buzzing, Luli used interspatial force at once. Nobody could move. Luli flew over and killed that divinity super mighty warrior in one move. Luli shouted, we are only going to kill Jiang Zuqiang. Anyone else who dares to stand in our way will die. The interspatial force disappeared. All the powerful warriors were taken aback. Just now, they could not move all of a sudden, and their most powerful warrior was killed by Luli in one move. Nobody wanted to die. If Luli wanted to kill everyone, they would have to fight to the death. Now, that Luli said he was only targeting Jiang Zuqiang, naturally, they had to run. Let's go. One patriarch ran away at once. The other patriarchs followed him. Of course, some of them tried to fight back. But Luli killed many of them with Space Twister. Let's go. Jiang Zuqiang was scared. He was a man who was afraid of death. He was about to yell at Craftsman's sect to intimidate Luli. However, Luli had killed their warrior in one move. If Jiang Zuqiang did not run, he would die for sure. The 100 assassins that rushed in were not at a high realm, but they were cunning. Soon, they reached the crowd and the buildings. They began to destroy and set fires everywhere. For a moment, enemies were everywhere. The Hall of Relics was in a mess. You want to run? Luli sneered at Jiang Zuqiang and dashed over. Under the suppression of interspatial force, Jiang Zuqiang was immobilized. Luli flew over and stood next to Jiang Zuqiang. He said gently, Jiang Zuqiang, I have told you that the Chamber of Relics, which has been established for 10,000 years, will be ruined if you are the chief. I did not expect that you would bring this upon yourself. How can you face Master Jiang Xing'e? You are. A glow rose in Jiang Zuqiang's eyes. He was about to call out Luli's name when Luli used Space Twister to mince him up. Blood spilled and the sky was dyed red. P.S. There are only 2 chapters today. Chapter 1552. With Jiang Zuqiang's death, the Divine Artifact Hall was in complete chaos. A group of refiners usually focused on refining. Although some of them had a good cultivation, their actual combat ability was pitifully low. So when someone started to run, the others followed. The 100 assassins took the opportunity to destroy and set fire everywhere. Soon, the beautiful Divine Artifact Castle was reduced to ruins. Of course, a small half of the 100 assassins were killed. After all, these assassins were too weak. There were still some experts in the Divine Artifact Hall. After Luli killed Jiang Zuqiang, he killed a bunch of warriors who were fighting for their lives. Then, he waved his hand and said, Brothers, Jiang Zuqiang is dead. Mission accomplished. Let's go. When the remaining assassins heard this, They immediately hid in the darkness and fled in all directions. Assassins were best at two things. The first was assassination, and the second was escape. In just a few dozen breaths of time, all of them had escaped. Even the corpses of the assassins had been taken away. Luli rushed out of the city and found a deserted place. He activated the cloaking armor and sneaked toward the northwest. He didn't care about the life or death of the remaining assassins, and he didn't care if it would implicate the assassin organization. Back then, when the leader of this organization took his god source, he knew the consequences of this. Since he wanted to earn 100 million divine roots, he had to take a certain amount of risk. What happened next was completely out of Lu Li's control. There were actually some flaws in his plan. For example, if he used the power of space and the space twist, it was very likely that the craftsman sect would find out that it was him who did it. It was not a big deal to know that it was Lu Li. He was just worried that the Chamber of Relics would be implicated. That was why Lu Li went to such great lengths. He did this to create a false impression that Jiang Zuqiang had offended a big shot and was killed by the Big Shot's assassin organization. This way, on the surface, they would have nothing to do with the Chamber of Relics, which would reduce the risk. The Artifact Pavilion used to be a branch of the Craftsman sect, so the Craftsman sect would pay attention to their influence. Since it seemed to have nothing to do with the Chamber of Relics, the Craftsman sect would not cause trouble for the Chamber of Relics. They would only target him. That was his purpose. Do your best and leave it to the will of heaven. Now that things had come to this, Lu Li couldn't control what would happen next. He ran all the way, disguised himself again, went to a city, and then teleported all the way there. The purpose of his trip was very clear, and that was to go to a prefecture in the northwest. There was a rather famous mountain at the edge of the prefecture, the Godly Soar Mountain. When he had just ascended, he was unfamiliar with the divinity. The only thing on his mind was to go to the Sword's Mountain and find Emperor of Heaven Reverse. Then, he followed Emperor of Heaven Reverse to conquer the divinity and made a name for himself. In the past, he did not have the Divine Source or the Identity Jade Talisman, so he could not enter the city to teleport. It would take more than 10 years to fly over with a Void Beast. After he killed Ling Faidu, he no longer dared to go to the Swords Mountain. He had to go to the Chamber of Relics to hide. After that, he went to the land of Yuyin and never had the chance to go to the Immortal Sword Mountain. At this moment, he finally had the ability to do so, and it just so happened that he did not know where to go. Since he had come to the southern part of the Immortal Realm, it would be inappropriate for him to not go to the Immortal Sword Mountain to take a look. Of course, it was impossible for him to openly reveal his identity and go to Immortal Sword Mountain. That would bring disaster to Immortal Sword Mountain. This place was actually not too far away from the Divine Sword Mountain. If they teleported continuously day and night, it would only take them 7 or 8 days. Lu Li was not in a hurry. The teleportation route was erratic, and he would change his disguise every now and then. At the same time, he asked about the Hall of Relics along the way. The Hall of Relics was under attack. General Jiang Zuqiang was killed. The Hall of Relics was almost destroyed. Hundreds of people were injured or killed. Soon, the news spread across the Southern Divinity. If the Hall of Relics was just an average force, then people would not pay attention. However, the Hall of Relics was a branch of the Craftsman's sect. This was a slap to the Craftsman's sect's face. At the moment, the entire divinity was talking about Lu Li. The Craftsman sect had mobilized many people and asked for help from several major families and assassin groups. At the Eastern Divinity, many prefectural armies were sent out. However, nothing was gained. It was as if Lu Li had vanished in a thin air. Now, the Hall of Relics was under attack. Once again, the Craftsman sect was humiliated. As one of the 4 supernatural forces, it was not a good thing to be humiliated over and over again. Everyone was happy to hear that the Craftsman sect was in trouble. They did not have the ability or the courage to provoke the Craftsman sect. Naturally, they were happy that someone had the courage to do so. Of course, some were wondering if it was Lu Li who did it. After all, Lu Li went missing at the Eastern Divinity, and then a branch of the Craftsman sect at the Southern Divinity was attacked. How could it be such a coincidence? What was more, few in the divinity had the courage to make trouble for the craftsman's sect. The craftsman's sect was in a rage. Who would go to the tiger's mouth? All sorts of guesses, deductions, and discussions spread like wildfire. Everyone was wondering which mysterious big shot did this to the Hall of Relics. Or was it Luli? Naturally, nobody paid attention to the small Chamber of Relics. The Chamber of Relics was about to be disbanded. Many people had even forgotten about it. Good. Luli felt relieved after he overheard the discussion in a tea house. Killing Jiang Zuqiang was not a big deal. What he was worried about was implicating the Chamber of Relics. As long as nobody paid attention to the Chamber of Relics, Luli would have achieved his goal. Luli teleported away. Several days later, he arrived at a prefecture, the Rising Sun Prefecture. According to the map, the Swords Mountain was between the Rising Sun Prefecture and the Xianqing Prefecture to the west. There was a mountain range here, and there were several smaller forces. It must be because there happened to be a blessed land at the border of the two prefectures. Let's go. Luli stepped into the teleportation formation and went from city to city. At the same time, he began to check if anyone was following him. He was a plague. He must not bring disaster to the Swords Mountain. Half a day later, Luli arrived at a small city. To the west was the border of the two prefectures, where the Swords Mountain was located. Luli found a place to rest. For one thing, he wanted to gather some information. For another, he wanted to see if anyone was following him. For another, he wanted to calm down and rest before he went to meet the ancestral god of the Heaven Reverse universe, the Emperor of Heaven Reverse. Making sure that no one was following him, Luli rested for 2 hours. He asked a servant, but it was not good news. The Swords Mountain had sealed itself off for many years. Over the years, nobody from the Swords Mountain had come out. The Swords Mountain had activated a powerful inhibition formation. Nobody could go in. Is the Emperor of Heaven Reverse in danger? Why is it still there? Luli frowned. He remembered that before he ascended to the immortal world, the Emperor of Heaven Reverse sent down an avatar and said that he was going to cultivate for some time. Luli did not expect that the Emperor of Heaven Reverse would seal the mountain for such a long time. Let's go. Luli changed into a robe and disguised himself as an average young man. He sneaked out of the city and headed toward the Swords Mountain. The sealing of the Swords Mountain was not a big deal for him. If he wanted to, he could do it easily. For hours later, Luli finally stood at the foot of the Swords Mountain. He seemed to be excited. Chapter 1553. The Swords Mountain was tall and strange. From the outside, it looked like a sword piercing into the clouds. The entire mountain was shrouded in mist. Luli could not see it clearly. What was faintly discernible must be some inhibition formations. Luli did not approach rashly. Instead, he walked around the mountain, making sure that nobody was around. He went to the foot of the mountain and asked Blood Fairy to use her tentacles to check the inhibition formations. Master, in the time for half an incense stick to burn, Blood Fairy said, there is a nice inhibition formation on the mountain, but it is not difficult to crack. Master, do you want to crack it? No. Luli answered after some thoughts. Just touch the inhibition formation and alert the people inside. Buzzing, after a while, the thick fog on the mountain slightly fluctuated, like ripples on water. Then, many psychic powers were sent out. A voice came to Luli's ears. I am sorry, Lord. The sword sect has closed off and will not receive anyone. Luli smiled. I know your venerable Heaven Reverse. Tell him to come out, and he will see me. Oh, wait a moment. That psychic power came back. But there were still some psychic powers locked onto Luli, alerting him. After all, Luli was a mighty warrior in the divinity. For the sword sect, Luli could be compared to the chief. After the time for one incense stick to burn, a psychic power came out and checked Luli. Then the psychic power said, I am venerable Heaven Reverse. And you are? Emperor of Heaven Reverse. Luli's breaths were short. He was trembling in excitement. Taking a deep breath, he said, Venerable Lord, do you remember the demon-slaying city? Do you remember what you said? You said that if I can come to the divinity, I can come to the Swords Mountain to find you. You can accept me as your protege. Eh. Emperor of Heaven Reverse trembled. His eyes glowed. He said at once, "You are Lu." "Yes." Lu Li interrupted Emperor of Heaven Reverse's message and said, "Venerable Lord, please forgive me for taking the liberty to visit you." Lu Li's words were meaningful. He did not want others to know that he had come to the Swords Mountain, not even disciples of the Swords sect. That would bring endless troubles to the Swords sect. The thick fog outside the mountain gradually dissipated, revealing a large road. A middle-aged man walked out from it, cupped his hands, and said, "Sir, the sect leader invites you in." Luli nodded. He looked at the middle-aged man and noticed that he looked similar to Emperor of Heaven Reverse. He might be Emperor of Heaven Reverse's offspring. Following the mountain path up the mountain, the fog outside quickly became thicker. The formation was activated again. From the outside, Lu Li and the middle-aged man disappeared into the haze. The path was steep, but it didn't affect Lu Li and the others at all. They made it to the peak easily. At the peak of the mountain, Lu Li nodded. There were castles and pavilions everywhere. There were many disciples as well, more than 20,000. The sect of swords was not bad. Lu Li stared at a middle-aged man in front of him. This man had a fair face and no beard. He was wearing a Taoist robe and had a book in his hand. He didn't look like a warrior at all. He looked more like an elegant teacher. Lu Li tried hard to suppress his emotions. He walked over, cupped his fists, and said, "Greetings, Venerable One." There were many onlookers. They were all disciples of the sect. After all, Master had come to greet them in person. They were all curious about Lu Li's identity. What was more, Lu Li was a mighty warrior in the divinity. Naturally, he was interested in powerful warriors. Emperor of Heaven Reverse showed no emotion. He nodded and said, "It has been a while. This way, please." Lu Li followed Emperor of Heaven Reverse to a castle. Outside the door, Emperor of Heaven Reverse waved his hand, and the patriarch stopped. Only the middle-aged man who looked like Emperor of Heaven Reverse followed Lu Li in. "Who is he?" a patriarch asked with curiosity. The other patriarchs shook their heads, indicating that they did not know him. They knew all the mighty warriors in the divinity that Emperor of Heaven Reverse knew. Over the years, those mighty warriors had stopped contacting the sect of swords. Today, a mighty warrior from the divinity suddenly came, and he seemed to be on good terms with their master. But why didn't he let them in as well? Buzzing, the inhibition formation in the hall was activated. Lu Li didn't take a seat. He wiped his face, took off his mask, and revealed his face. Then, he dropped to one knee and said, "Greetings, Emperor of Heaven Reverse." The middle-aged man was taken aback. Then, he turned to Emperor of Heaven Reverse in shock. The latter stood up quickly and helped Lu Li up. "No, Lu Li, you're stronger than me. How can you be so formal?" Lu Li didn't stand up. Looking up at Emperor of Heaven Reverse, he said, "No matter how far I go, I will always be from the Heaven Reverse universe. You are the ancestor of the Heaven Reverse universe. Without you, the human race in the Heaven Reverse universe would have gone extinct." The middle-aged man's expressions changed. He couldn't help but ask, "You are the famous Lu Li who dared to fight against the craftsman's sect?" Lu Li turned to the middle-aged man and said with a smile, "I don't dare to say I am famous, but I think I am the Lu Li you mentioned." "Ha ha ha ha." Emperor of Heaven Reverse smiled gladly. He helped Lu Li up and sized him up. "Lu Li, you did not disappoint me. Not only did you ascend to the divinity, but you have also achieved so much. I'm proud of you." "Thank you, Your Majesty," Lu Li said with excitement. "You are our ancestor. Without you, the Heaven Reverse universe would have been doomed. Compared to your great achievements, my achievements are not worth mentioning. Also, I am being hunted down." "Ha ha ha. Right. Speaking of this," Emperor of Heaven Reverse asked with curiosity, "I learned that you were being hunted down. Where have you been all these years? Have you been hiding in the divinity?" "No." Lu Li shook his head and said with a forced smile, "I went to the land of Yuyan and only recently returned to the divinity. I wanted to keep a low profile, but the craftsman's sect found out. They are looking for me all over the world. But don't worry, Your Majesty. Nobody followed me. I will not implicate the sword sect as long as I keep a low profile. Implicate? You are treating me like an outsider. Emperor of Heaven Reverse pretended to be angry. Then, he exclaimed, a young man from the mortal world ascended to the divinity in such a short time and made a name for himself. Not even the craftsman's sect could do anything to you. Luli, you're making us old guys feel ashamed. It had been hundreds of thousands of years since Emperor of Heaven Reverse ascended to the divinity. Even now, he was still a mighty warrior in the divinity. Luli had just ascended to the divinity for a dozen or 2 years. He was not even 100 years old. In the divinity, he was considered a young man. Luli was a mighty warrior in the divinity. More importantly, he could kill super mighty warriors in the divinity. He could escape unscathed even when being hunted down by the craftsman's sect. He came to the sword's mountain on his own. This made Emperor of Heaven Reverse feel ashamed and proud at the same time. Father, the middle-aged man next to him, was excited. He cupped his fists and said, Lord Luli is impressive. We can ask him to help us against the Black Flag Hall. All these years we shut up. Chapter 1554. There is no hurry. Luli smiled. Looking at Doling, he asked, Emperor, is this your son? Emperor of Heaven Reverse nodded. Doling said in fear, Greetings, Lord. Doling was just an average immortal who barely made it to the list. For Doling, Luli was an important figure in the divinity. Doling dared not to disrespect him. Don't call me Lord. Just call me Luli. Luli felt the pressure. Emperor of Heaven Reverse was hundreds of thousands of years old. Even if he had a child after many years in the divinity, Doling would be hundreds of thousands of years old. How could Luli call himself an elder? Emperor of Heaven Reverse nodded. This is my son. He is not talented enough, and he is not sensible enough. Sorry for the embarrassment. Luli smiled and asked, Your Majesty, you are our ancestor god. The sword sect's business is my business. Are you facing any difficulties? Nothing. Emperor of Heaven Reverse waved his hand. It is just a small matter. We can handle it. Luli, you're in a difficult situation. Don't worry about us. Father, Doling shouted anxiously. Luli turned around and said with a smile, Doling, you tell him. Don't worry. I will not be afraid, even if they have a supreme warrior in the divinity. Supreme warrior in the divinity? Doling felt dizzy. He waved his hand and said, No. We have the Black Flag Hall next to us. They have always been our enemy. Not long ago, their master became a super mighty warrior in the divinity. So, Luli, don't worry about this. Emperor of Heaven Reverse was about to say something when Luli laughed and waved his hand. I thought it was something serious. He is just a super mighty warrior in the divinity. I have killed at least dozens of warriors of this level. He is just an average super mighty warrior in the divinity. I can kill him easily. Emperor, don't worry. I'm just going to see what I can do to avoid implicating the sword sect. After all, the craftsman sect is looking for me all over the world. If the craftsman's sect knows about our relationship, I am afraid that you will be implicated. I can kill him easily. Doling became agitated and his face turned red. The Black Flag Palace had pressured the godly sword mountain to the point that they could hardly breathe. Many of the resources and treasures that belonged to the godly sword mountain had been taken away. In the past few years, many disciples of the immortal sword mountain had died, and many had escaped. It was all thanks to the Black Flag Palace Hall. Moreover, he had an older brother who also died at the hands of Black Flag Hall. All right, thank you, Luli. Emperor of Heaven Reverse did not argue. He had been in closed-door cultivation all these years, but he could not become a super mighty warrior in the divinity. The older a martial artist got, the worse their bodily functions would become. Their thinking would also become rigid. It was almost impossible for their strength to increase explosively. Emperor of Heaven Reverse wondered if he could ever become a super mighty warrior in the divinity. The Black Flag Palace had occupied the immortal sword sect's resources and treasures, and was becoming more and more powerful. If this continued, sooner or later, the immortal sword mountain would be destroyed. This matter is not urgent. Luli smiled. He was not worried at all. He said, I will make a plan later. I will find a chance to kill all their grandmasters and powerful warriors. As long as I don't implicate the Swords Mountain, the rest is not a big deal. Emperor of Heaven Reverse exclaimed again, seeing how casual Luli was. Doling was so excited that he did not know what to say. Over the years, the Black Flag Palace was like a mountain pressing down on the immortal sword sect. Doling and the others felt the mountain could crush them at any time. Now that Luli was here, the mountain could finally be moved away. Doling felt Luli could crush the mountain with a wave of his hand. Naturally, Doling was excited. Luli did not take this matter to heart. He asked another question. Emperor, have you sent an avatar to the Heaven Reverse universe and the Earth Imperial universe over the years? Do you know the situation of my people? Oh, about that. Emperor of Heaven Reverse said, a while ago, when you escaped from the Chamber of Relics, I learned about you. I sent an avatar to ask about you. Your family and people are doing well. Some of them still have the hope of ascending to the divinity. I have told them to contact me before they ascend to the divinity. I will send someone to pick them up. Thank you, Emperor. Luli bowed at once and asked, Your Majesty, can you send an avatar to check on the situation for me and tell them that I have been contacted? I'm doing well. Tell them not to worry. I do not cultivate the energy of faith. Therefore, I cannot send an avatar. Do not cultivate it, Emperor of Heaven Reverse said at once. After I began to cultivate the energy of faith, my abilities have been growing slower. Unless you can acquire a large amount of energy of faith, this will be a dead end for you. This is an evil path. You must take the right path. Luli nodded. Emperor of Heaven Reverse took Luli's hand and led him to a corridor on the side. On their way, Emperor of Heaven Reverse said, Let's go. I will send an avatar here. I can use a skill to let you talk to your family directly. Ah, that's even better. Luli was excited. For so many years, he knew nothing about the lower universe. Finally, he could contact them through Emperor of Heaven Reverse. Emperor of Heaven Reverse entered a side chamber where there was an altar. He nodded to Luli and sat on the altar with his legs crossed. Emperor of Heaven Reverse poured out some divine energy. The altar glowed. Luli's breaths were short. He tidied up his clothes and waited anxiously. Only the time for 3 incense sticks to burn had passed, but Luli felt it had been 3 years. Finally, the altar glowed brighter. Emperor of Heaven Reverse's hands glowed with divine energy as he hit at a wall. The wall glowed and a picture appeared. Boom! When Luli saw this, he felt like he had been struck by lightning. It was a hall. Several people were standing in the hall. They were Patriarch of Law Enforcement, Lu Zhenyang, Lu Feishue, and Bai Xiaoshuang. What? At the same time, those in the relic city of the Earth Imperial Universe saw what was happening in the hall. They saw Emperor of Heaven Reverse and Luli standing next to him. Darling, Bai Xiaoshuang trembled. Tears ran down her cheeks. Lu Zhenyang, Patriarch of Law Enforcement, and Lu Feishue were thrilled as well. Just now, when the statue of Emperor of Heaven Reverse suddenly glowed, they were alarmed and hurried over. They did not expect to see Luli in the hall. Luli's eyes reddened. He said, choking with sobs, Great-Grandpa, Grandpa, Andy Shuang. Darling, Bai Xiaoshuang shouted again. She dashed out and cried, Sister, Sister Chilling, come here. Darling is here. What? Bai Xiaoshuang's shout made the entire relic city burst into an uproar. Many people thought that Luli was back, and they came over. Whoosh, from a yard, Jiang Qiling and Bai Xiaoshua dashed out and dashed into the hall. When they saw Luli on the screen, they trembled violently. Tears welled up in their eyes uncontrollably. Phew, phew. Luli was relieved to see the familiar faces. At least, his family and friends were safe. He felt at ease. But he felt guilty when he saw the others. He had not heard from them for so many years. They worried about him day and night and could not eat or sleep well. Work hard. At this moment, Luli made up his mind again. He must cultivate hard and become stronger. Only in this way could his family not suffer from the pain of missing him. his family could reunite in the divinity. To reunite with his family, he had to defeat the 4 legendary forces and ascend to the peak of the divinity. Chapter 1555. With the help of Emperor of Heaven Reverse, Luli met up with his family and friends for an hour. He gained a better understanding of the Earth Imperial Universe and the Heaven Reverse Universe. He told them about his encounters in the divinity and his current situation. Of course, he concealed most of the information and only told the good ones. He lied about many things. Otherwise, his family would be worried about him because of what he had gone through and the danger he was in. Jiang Chilling by Qiushua and the others must have lost their minds worrying about him every day. The Earth Imperial Universe and the Heaven Reverse Universe were stable. Before Lu Li ascended to the divinity, he had laid a solid foundation. With the Relic City, as long as the Lu family was fine, the outside world would not be able to break it. Over the years, the Lu family had trained and recruited many powerful warriors. The city of Great Land was full of powerful warriors. The Lu family controlled the Earth Imperial Universe and had many resources. Lu Renhuang had reached the peak of the semi-god realm as well. He was no weaker than the patriarchs of the other families. Bai Qiushue, Prajna, and Lu Renhuang were the most promising ones to ascend to the divinity. But Lu Renhuang said that he would not consider ascending before the Lu family had a powerful warrior that could deter the 9 universes. Bai Qiushue and Prajna had a good chance to ascend. Of course, nobody could tell when they would ascend. It was possible that they could ascend in half a year after an epiphany. It was also possible that they would be stuck at the last step and it would take them dozens or hundreds of years. Lu Li told them that if anyone ascended to the divinity, they must contact Emperor of Heaven Reverse through the statue, and he would arrange someone to pick them up. When Lu Li ascended to the divinity, he would have to do hard labor in the mines. When ascending to the divinity, they could be killed. If someone could pick them up, they could be teleported to the Sword's Mountain directly. An hour later, the Emperor of Heaven Reverse could not stand it any longer. It would consume a great deal of energy and divine energy for him to use this skill. Even though Lu Li and the others were not satisfied, Emperor of Heaven Reverse had no choice but to stop. "Thank you, Your Majesty." Lu Li clasped his fists. Without the energy of faith, he could not send an avatar. Emperor of Heaven Reverse helped him meet with his family and friends. Lu Li was satisfied to learn about the lower universe. This is not a big deal. Emperor of Heaven Reverse was pale. He waved his hand and closed his eyes to rest for a moment. Then he stood up and said, "Lu Li, let's go and have a drink." All right. Lu Li was in a good mood. He went to another side hall with Emperor of Heaven Reverse. Emperor of Heaven Reverse didn't ask anyone to come. Instead, he asked Do Ling to keep Lu Li company. They drank to their heart's content. Emperor of Heaven Reverse told Lu Li about his experiences in the Heaven Reverse universe and what happened after he came to the divinity. Lu Li told him about what he had been through recently and what happened to the land of Yuyan. Emperor of Heaven Reverse and Do Ling exclaimed. Lu Li was already at odds with the craftsman's sect in the divine world. When he went to the land of Yuyan, he was at odds with the supremes of the divine world. If he didn't come to the divine world, he would probably be at odds with the 9 godly king clans. It seemed like wherever Lu Li went, something big would happen. Could it be that he was a natural disaster? An idea came to Emperor of Heaven Reverse's mind, but he soon rejected it. It wasn't that Lu Li was a troublemaker. It was just that he was lucky. Why did he say that? That was because there were battles and oppression everywhere. There were many places in the god world where battles were fought at all times. What can you do when a powerful force bullies you and wants to kill you? Be obedient, pretend to be submissive, or surrender. Or fight to the end. Usually, Lu Li would choose the latter. He chose to fight. Many people in the divinity would fight as well. They would clash with the powerful forces and fight the weak against the strong. That being said, most of them would die in battle or be crushed by the powerful forces. A small number of people would survive. They would either flee to a faraway place to seek refuge or turn defeat into victory. As for those who were able to survive and continuously improve their combat strength, they would often become experts. If they could keep going and grow stronger, they could become a formidable person in the divinity, an overlord, or even a legend. Therefore, it could be said that Luli was quite lucky. Many people, like him, would fight back against the bullying of the major forces. But most of them died. A small number survived, but they didn't have the luck he did. They didn't have the speed of increasing their abilities. The reason why a legend was because he could do what others couldn't. Miracles were miracles because they could create miracles. It wasn't that Lu Li was a troublemaker. It wasn't that he liked difficult challenges. It wasn't that he enjoyed a life of killing. He didn't want to become a killer himself. He had always wanted to live a peaceful life. Emperor of Heaven Reverse was once a legend. He was a legend in the Heaven Reverse universe and the 9 universes. However, after he came to the divinity, he took the wrong path. He cultivated the energy of faith, which made it harder for him to make progress. Maybe it was because he was not lucky enough. If he could gain enough energy of faith and occupy more territories in the mortal world, he might become a powerful warrior. Success depended on 80% hard work, 10% talent, and 10% luck. Many times, talent and luck were more important than hard work. Of course, hard work was the foundation. Hard work might not guarantee success, but not hard work would not lead to success. Emperor of Heaven Reverse was drunk. He chatted with Lu Li for a long time. He told Lu Li about his understanding of life and his regrets about the mistakes he had made. Lu Li listened carefully and kept in mind that there were some mistakes in life that should not be made. Once they were made, they could affect the rest of one's life or even lead to one's death. Lu Li stayed at the Swords Mountain for a day. On the second day, he discussed many things with Emperor of Heaven Reverse. Lu Li gave Emperor of Heaven Reverse 1 billion divine sources, which the latter refused to accept. Later on, Lu Li said that the divine sources were not for the Swords Mountain, but for Emperor of Heaven Reverse to take care of Lu Li's family. If possible, Emperor of Heaven Reverse could pass down skills and artifacts. Lu Li asked Emperor of Heaven Reverse to arrange for someone to pick them up and bring them to the Swords Mountain to cultivate. Lu Li could not stay at the Swords Mountain for too long. He could not even let the outside know that he had been here. Otherwise, his enemies would come to the Swords Mountain. Given the Swords Mountain's abilities, any super mighty warrior from the divinity could destroy the Swords Mountain. With everything settled, Lu Li left the mountain quietly. The inhibition formation of the Swords Mountain trembled and was activated again. Emperor of Heaven Reverse had sealed off the Swords Mountain. Even if Lu Li had succeeded, the Swords Mountain could not make any moves before it was safe enough. Otherwise, it would arouse suspicion. Apart from Doling, Emperor of Heaven Reverse didn't even tell his own grandson about Lu Li and his subordinates that had been with him for hundreds of thousands of years. He knew that once the fact that Lu Li had come to the Swords Mountain was exposed, the Swords sect would be doomed. Father, Doling watched as Lu Li left the mountain. He asked with anticipation, how will Lu Li kill the Grand Master of the Black Flag Hall? Is he sure that he can do it? Don't doubt his ability. Emperor of Heaven Reverse waved his hand. Since he is ready to do it, then there is no problem. He will do it well. We just need to keep an eye on the Black Flag Hall and its surroundings and be ready to take over the territory of the Black Flag Hall at any time. Chapter 1556. After Lu Li left the Swords Mountain, he began to plan how to kill the Grand Master of Black Flag Hall. As he said, Emperor of Heaven Reverse was the ancestor of the Heaven Reverse universe. Emperor of Heaven Reverse's business was Lu Li's business. Without Emperor of Heaven Reverse, there would be no humans in the Heaven Reverse universe. What was more, Lu Li could not destroy the 4 legendary forces anytime soon. Therefore, he could not show up in the divinity openly. Bai Qiuxue, Lu Renhuang, Prajna, and the others needed a place to settle down. The Swords Mountain was the best. Lu Li was assured that Emperor of Heaven Reverse would look after them. Lu Li knew the Black Flag Hall very well. It was a small force that had been fighting against the sword sect for years. However, the Grand Master of the Black Flag Hall had become a super mighty warrior in the divinity. That was why he could suppress the sword sect and kill many of them. The Black Flag Hall had one super mighty warrior and two mighty warriors in the divinity. The two mighty warriors were recruited later. Grand Master was a super mighty warrior in the divinity. It was easy for him to recruit two mighty warriors. Actually, the Black Flag Hall had never attacked the sword sect for two reasons. For one, it was difficult to crack the defense formation of the sword sect. For another, the Grand Master of the Black Flag Hall wanted to take back Emperor of Heaven Reverse and gradually annex the sword sect. Several patriarchs had joined the Black Flag Hall. After I kill the Grand Master and the two patriarchs, the Emperor will be relieved. Luli made up his mind. Killing was easy. Now, he had to find a way to do it quietly without arousing suspicion. Luli studied the map over and over again. Soon, he stopped at an ancient site to the north of the Black Flag Hall. To the north, there was a once famous site called the Wei Di Mountain. Naturally, Emperor Wei was a powerful warrior. The Wei Di Mountain used to be his tomb. There was a powerful inhibition formation of Elder God there. However, all the inhibition formations were cracked by a powerful force. All the treasures were taken away. For more than 100,000 years, no one had been here. Why? Because it was confirmed that the Wei Di Mountain had been emptied. The powerful inhibition formations were cracked, but there were still some small ones left. Although it was just a small restriction, it was an ancient god restriction. It posed a great threat to ordinary deities and even almighty beings of the god realm. If something went wrong, even the super almighty beings of the god realm would die inside. Since there was nothing inside, who would be stupid enough to go in and die? Luli was not afraid of the forbidden area of Elder God. He could go in easily. Moreover, ordinary people did not dare to enter this place. So, if he took out some treasures from inside, some divine light, it would very likely alarm Black Flag Hall and then attract the experts of Black Flag Hall to come in. Ordinary god spirits didn't dare to enter Mount Wei Di, and the Black Flag Palace's experts died inside. So this matter didn't attract much attention. After all, the Black Flag Hall Master was not killed by humans, but by the restrictions of the Wei Emperor Mountain. Right, let's go. Luli thought about it carefully. The only thing that could go wrong was that, when Luli faked some divine glow, he was afraid that other forces nearby would be alarmed. At that time, he was afraid that once the situation became chaotic, he would have to kill a lot of people, which would cause a huge commotion. Let's go find the Bloodshed Hall. On the way, Luli turned toward the Rising Sun Mansion, planning to ask the Bloodshed Hall for help. For example, they could monitor the nearby information and send the news of the treasure at the Wei Emperor Mountain to the Black Flag Hall at once. He arrived at a small town and teleported to the Rising Sun Mansion. Jian Shilai once said that every prefecture had a branch of the Bloodshed Hall. Luli wandered around in the city and found a familiar sign. He went into an attic and showed Jian Shilai's token of patriarch. The branch master here knelt down at once and would do whatever Luli said. Of course, Luli would not trick the Bloodshed Hall. Otherwise, how could he face Pan Yuqin? Therefore, he only asked the Bloodshed Hall to send someone to monitor the situation outside the Wei Emperor Mountain. He had to make sure that the treasure in the Wei Emperor Mountain would be discovered by the Black Flag Hall and not other forces. This was not a big deal for the Bloodshed Hall. The Hall Master promised that he would complete the task. Luli left with peace of mind. He teleported to the north of the Black Flag Hall and sneaked to the foot of the Wei Emperor Mountain. This mountain is magnificent. It is like a tiger crouching and a dragon coiling. No wonder Emperor Wei chose this place as his grave. Luli stood at the foot of the mountain and looked into the distance. He found the mountain to be magnificent, as if there was a huge beast in front of him. Luli walked around and saw nobody at the foot of the mountain. This place was like an ominous place. Nobody dared to come close. On his way, Luli also noticed some inhibition formations in the outer area. They were weak, but they were inhibition formations of Elder God. Let's go up. Luli told Blood Fairy to reach out her tentacles and glided up the mountain like a fox. The mountain was a cluster of mountains. The deeper he went, the more inhibition formations there were. Luli did not think about cracking the inhibition formations. This was the outer area. Average immortals could come in if they were careful. With Blood Fairy's help, Luli went around the inhibition formations and went deeper into the mountain. An hour later, Luli reached the depth of the mountain. He did not go to the deepest part. Instead, he stopped a mountain. He stopped because the inhibition formations of Elder God in this mountain were strong. Blood Fairy wanted to take a closer look to see if she could learn something. Luli also found a strange stone in this mountain. He had seen this stone at the land of Yuyan. It was the cyan red stone from Mount Bujo in the burial of ancient demons. Little White. Luli let Little White out from the wicked bead. Little White must have been sleeping and was still in a daze. Its small eyes scanned the area, and when it saw Luli, it immediately called out affectionately. However, Little White's nose twitched. Little White looked down and saw the red stone. Little White did not even have the time to be intimate with Luli. Little White flew down and began to gnaw at the stone. There used to be a powerful inhibition formation of Elder God here. The entire mountain seems to be made of red and green stones. How strong must the thunderbolts be? Luli used psychic power to check. Even though the red and cyan stones blocked his psychic power, Luli could tell that the entire mountain was made of red and cyan stones. This is a pleasant surprise. Luli's mood was lifted to see how happy Little White was. There were so many red and green stones in this mountain. It should be enough for Little White to eat for several years. How strong would Little White be after it ate all the stones? Immeasurable. Okay, let's do this. Luli thought about it and decided to wait here for the opportunity to come. It was half an hour's journey from here to the outside. Along the way, there were remnants of inhibition formations of Elder God. It would be difficult for average immortals to reach this place. Set up the formation. Luli got to work. He took out many formation stones. He did not build any powerful formations, just a simple formation of mist. This formation was not very useful, but it could cover up the surroundings in mist so that people would not be able to see clearly. Okay, yeah, in an hour, the entire mountain Luli was on, including the 2 miles above the mountain, was shrouded in mist. Luli let out a mountain with a radius of 1,000 feet. The mountain flew up to the sky, giving off a golden glow. Chapter 1557. Okay, let's go. At the foot of the mountain was a branch master of the Hall of Bloodblade. He came with a team in person. Seeing the fog and light in the mountain, he gave the order. Luli had told him to act as soon as they saw the light. Dozens of warriors were sent to hide around the Wei Di mountain. Once there were warriors of other forces approaching, he would inform Luli at once. Luli would put down the mountain so that no passers-by would be alarmed. At the same time, 2 warriors of the Hall of Bloodblade disguised themselves as warriors of some small forces nearby and went to the territory of the Black Flag Palace. They would accidentally leak the news that there was a treasure here to the Black Flag Palace. As long as someone from the Black Flag Palace came to check, it would be over. Everything went well. Half a day later, a team of warriors passed by. The Hall of Bloodblade noticed them in advance. Luli put away the mountain at once. Naturally, the team of warriors would not go into the Wei Di mountain for no reason. They just passed by. The 2 warriors sent out had accomplished their mission. They happened to run into a scout from the Black Flag Palace. The scout talked in a low voice, saying that they had found a treasure and they had to report back to a small force at the Rising Sun Mansion. Of course, the scout was not so stupid. He didn't report to the Black Flag Palace right away. Instead, he came here to check. He vaguely noticed that in the depth of the mountain, there was a streak of golden light. Clearly, the treasure was about to come out. The scout sped up. He was not far away from the Black Flag Palace. In just half a day, thousands of warriors had come from the Black Flag Palace. They surrounded the Wei Di mountain. Retreat, the branch master of the Hall of Bloodblade ordered secretly. Luli said that as long as the warriors from the Black Flag Palace came, the Hall of Bloodblade would have nothing to do. Nothing else was to be taken care of. Otherwise, the Hall of Bloodblade would be implicated. The master of the Black Flag Palace didn't come. The two mighty warriors from the divinity were here. After all, the master of the Black Flag Palace wouldn't come in person before they found out what the treasure was. The two mighty warriors from the divinity went into the mountain with several scouts and warriors of formations. The others stayed on the periphery to guard and clear the area. Luli had received the message from the branch master of the Hall of Bloodblade. He sat in the fog with his legs crossed and observed the situation at the foot of the mountain. The mountain he was on was very high, so he could vaguely observe the situation below. Moreover, when he came in, he had casually set up some small restrictions. If anyone touched them, he would immediately sense it. He's here. After 2 hours, Luli finally saw more than a dozen people walking towards him. These dozen or so people moved very slowly, probing and sensing along the way. There were too many ancient god-forbidden grounds in the depths of the mountain. If they were not careful, they would all be dead by now. There really is a great treasure. The group of people below stared at the thick white fog above the mountain and the faintly discernible golden light within the white fog. There was also an indescribable pressure that made everyone's hearts palpitate. If it wasn't a supreme treasure, how could it have such a powerful pressure? Inform the Hall Master. A slightly older, almighty being from the immortal world revealed a solemn expression. The appearance of a treasure was often accompanied by danger. For the sake of safety, he decided to let the Black Flag Hall Master take action. We can inform the Hall Master. Another almighty from the god world waved his hand and said, "However, I feel that we can't afford to lose this opportunity. We should immediately go and obtain this treasure. Otherwise, a long night is fraught with dreams. What if an expert happens to pass by?" "All right," the old man nodded. He took out a jade talisman and poured psychic power into it. The jade talisman glowed for a while. The old man waved his hand and said, "The Hall Master will be here soon. Let's go up the mountain first." While checking the inhibition formations, they made their way up the mountain. However, they were unlucky, or the powerful warriors in the inhibition formations were too weak. When they were halfway up the mountain, they triggered the inhibition formations. A bolt of lightning tore the 5 of them apart. "Let's go." The 2 almighty warriors from the divinity made up their minds and moved on. How could they give up now that they had made it this far? Even if they were killed by the inhibition formations, they should at least go up and see what the treasure was. They moved on. There were too many inhibition formations on the mountain. By the time they reached the peak, another 6 of them had passed away. Out of the original 16, only 7 were left. As soon as everyone reached the top of the mountain, their gazes fell upon the divine mountain that was floating in the air. Feeling the indescribable pressure and aura of the divine mountain, everyone was extremely excited. What level of treasure is that? What a powerful aura. What a terrifying pressure. This is definitely an existence that surpasses a saint-rank divine artifact. Beyond a holy grade relic, could it be the legendary, primordial spirit heavenly treasure? Heavens, only the 4 legendary divine forces have it. We're rich. If we can get our hands on this, our Black Flag Palace Hall will soar. We might even become one of the 72 divine sects. The 7 were stunned. Their faces were filled with excitement. One of the young, almighty warriors from the divinity world revealed a murderous look. He wanted to kill everyone else and take the treasure for himself. Then he would run away. However, this young, almighty warrior didn't dare to do anything. He wasn't a match for another almighty warrior from the divinity world. If he didn't get his hands on the treasure, he would definitely be hunted down by the Black Flag Palace Hall. What is that? A scout's voice startled everyone. Everyone looked over and saw a beautiful little beast. It was chewing on a rock in a cave. At this moment, half of its head had popped out. Its 2 little claws were holding a greenish-red rock and eating it. There are spirit beasts in here. The older almighty warrior from the divinity world stared at the little beast and said in surprise, I don't remember there being any spirit beasts or wild beasts in Mount Wei. This little beast is very young. Could it be a beast born from heaven and earth? Could it be born together with the primordial spirit, heavenly treasure? Everyone's eyes lit up. If it really was a beast in heaven and earth, it would be a great help to them when it became stronger. Surround it. Don't let it run away. The older elder waved his hand. The group immediately spread out and surrounded the little beast. The little beast didn't panic at all. It continued to eat the greenish-red rock. Swish! The scout flew over, trying to catch the little beast. However, before his hand could reach the little beast, a battle saber appeared in midair. There was a flash of cold light. The scout's arm was chopped off at the shoulder. Buzz! At the same time, a figure appeared out of nowhere. He waved his hand, and an invisible force pressed down on everyone. No one could move. The two almighty warriors from the divinity world had already taken out their weapons. Now they couldn't even move a finger. Chapter 1558. The Black Flag Hall Master came very quickly. He didn't bring a single person and arrived here as fast as he could. He had an agreement with the two almighties of the god world that if there was indeed a precious treasure here, they would inform him immediately. Paying respects to Hall Master, many Black Flag Hall soldiers hurriedly saluted when they saw him coming. The Black Flag Hall's Hall Master's appearance was not bad. He was tall and well-built, and his eyes were filled with might. He had the domineering air of a formidable person, and his appearance was that of a middle-aged man. Black Flag Palace Master flew over and glanced at the depths of Wei Mountain. He saw the dense white mist and the faintly discernible divine light. His eyes flashed, and he asked, "Where are the two elders?" A martial artist replied, "They've been in there for a while." "Where are their jade talismans of life?" Palace Master Black Flag was not in a hurry to enter. Instead, he asked. In the distance, a man who looked like a commander walked over and reported, "The two elders are fine. So far, out of the 16 people who went in, 9 have died." Black Flag Palace Master glanced at them. After confirming that the two elders' life jade talismans weren't broken, he felt relieved. He waved his hand and said, "You two continue to guard the periphery. If there's any situation, inform me immediately." After giving his instructions, Temple Master Black Flag rushed inside. He was very fast, not worried at all about the forbidden ancient god inside. Because he came to A.D. Mountain too many times, he entered this place no less than a few hundred times. His psychic power was strong enough to detect the remaining inhibition formation of the elder god in the mountains. He rushed over, and in an hour, he arrived at the foot of the mountain where Luli was. There really is a rare treasure. The light in Palace Master Black Flag's eyes grew even brighter, but he was very cautious and didn't immediately ascend the mountain. Instead, he took out a jade talisman and infused his divine power into it to contact his subordinates. The jade talisman flashed for a while, but there was no response from the mountain. Black Flag Palace Master frowned. If the two elders were on the mountain, they would definitely respond to him or find a way to contact him. He waited for a moment, but there was still no response from the mountain. His expression became a little ugly. He once again injected his god power into the jade talisman. In the end, after waiting for the time for 3 incense sticks to burn, there was still no response. His heart became conflicted. He had always been conservative and cautious, and the situation on the mountain was unclear, so he did not dare to rashly go up the mountain. However, there were indeed great treasures on the mountain. Most importantly, the two elders had not replied, which meant that the two of them had encountered trouble. If he did not go up the mountain, the two elders might very well die. Go! After hesitating for the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, he gritted his teeth and walked up the mountain. On the mountaintop, Luli observed the situation below through the white mist. When he saw that Grand Master Black Flag had come up the mountain, he felt relieved. There were a few people lying behind him. He didn't kill any of the people who went up the mountain, only seriously injuring them and crippling their cultivation bases. Right now, they were all tied up. He was glad that he didn't kill them all. Otherwise, this Black Flag Palace Master would have most likely retreated. Buzz, he walked over and let those from the Black Flag Hall into the Wicked Bead. He himself entered the Wicked Bead as well, leaving the mountain and Little White outside. The Wicked Bead turned into an average stone, lying on the ground quietly. The speed at which the Black Flag Hall Master ascended the mountain was not bad, but he deliberately slowed down. When he was about to reach the peak, he did not rashly climb up. Instead, he first used his divine sense to investigate. What? He didn't see anyone on the mountain. All he saw was a golden mountain and a small beast gnawing on a cyan stone. He didn't use psychic power to check the mountain, nor was he tempted by the energy of the mountain. Out of instinct, he sensed danger. When he saw that there was no dried blood on the ground, he pulled a long face. He was a cautious person, which was one of the reasons why he never attacked the Sword Mountain. If it were any other situation, he would have left at once. That being said, after he took a closer look at the mountain, he was tempted and longed for it. The energy of the mountain were strong. Anyone with discerning eyes could tell that the mountain was definitely a piece of treasure, at least of the holy grade. Martial artists had an innate desire for treasures, because possessing a powerful treasure could immediately increase one's battle prowess and allow one to possess strange and unpredictable divine abilities. When their abilities were enhanced, their status and power would be enhanced, and all sorts of benefits would follow. After pondering for the time for one incense stick to burn, Grandmaster Black Flag decided to have a try. If he could subdue this treasure, then it would be a great benefit. On the other hand, if he could not, he could leave as soon as he sensed danger and report the matter. That would be a great merit. Grandmaster Black Flag slowly made his way to the peak. Inside the Wicked Bead, Luli was relieved. The Wicked Bead glowed, and Luli came out. What? Who are you? A glint of coldness rose in Grand Master Black Flag's eyes. A sword appeared in his hand at once. Violent energy poured out from him. He was like a lion encountering its natural enemy. Luli grinned. It doesn't matter who I am. All you need to know is that this day next year will be the anniversary of your death. Ha ha ha. Grandmaster Black Flag laughed and said with contempt, You? Where are my men? Buzzing, Luli's Wicked Bead glowed as he let everyone out. Grandmaster Black Flag was enraged to see that the 7 were all badly injured. He snorted and said, Who are you? What do we have against each other? Truth be told, I am very close to a patriarch of the craftsmen's sect with real power. It will not be good for anyone if we make a scene. A patriarch of the craftsmen's sect with real power? Luli burst into laughter. This man's background was the craftsman's sect, but the craftsman's sect did not recognize him. He was just using his connections to intimidate others. Luli asked in a mocking tone, Oh, which patriarch is it? Tell me. Maybe we can talk about it. Grandmaster Black Flag glanced over to Luli and said, Patriarch Leopard. Ha ha ha. Luli was amused. This man claimed to be close to Patriarch Leopard, using Patriarch Leopard to pressure him. Luli and Patriarch Leopard were mortal enemies. Also, this man had just become a super mighty warrior in the divinity, while Patriarch Leopard was a supreme warrior in the divinity. Close? This man really knew how to flatter himself. I know some people from the craftsman's sect. Luli grinned and said sarcastically, I know Patriarch Leopard and Patriarch Neo as well. I have killed a deputy patriarch of the Hall of Warfare. You killed a deputy patriarch of the Hall of Warfare? Grandmaster Black Flag was taken aback. He stared at Luli and suddenly yelled, You are Luli, the god of slaughter? If you are right, you will be rewarded. Luli waved his hand. Horrifying spatial force pressed down. Grandmaster Black Flag was just about to step back when he was restrained. He could not move at all. Go to hell. Luli stopped fooling around. He took out the Demon Slayer and hacked at Grandmaster Black Flag. 2 ripples spread out in space. Then, Grandmaster Black Flag's body exploded and was minced. Let's call it a day. Little White is leaving. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.